pick up pieces.
I've already signed.
Yeah, she's already signed it. One of your women has done that. One that killed it.
Not so I know what direction. The direction we're just talking about. Who's looking for direction? Who's looking for direction? Yeah. Oh, I have direction.
We all got one.
Tell them early enough to make it happen.
Pancakes, Tuesday, February 20th.
Yeah, you're gonna cook it.
All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We'll call this meeting to order. Under disclosure of pecuniary interest, we do have one from Councillor Belanger with respect to the Steiner Granite Curling Club, as I am a member of this club and will vote on all other matters. Councillor Belanger?
That was a possible pecuniary interest.
That's fine. Yeah, thank you. If anyone else at some point throughout this meeting feels they have a pecuniary interest, please let us know at that time and we'll note it for the record. Under deputations, petitions and public meetings, we have none. Item number 4, under unfinished business, we have as below, and you can see all those items that we tend to carry on and on and on. Any questions on those items from council? Seeing none. Under item number 5, new business, we'll start with item number 5A, the 2017 beachfront improvements. And we'll ask staff to come forward, please. Good afternoon. Floor is yours.
Your worship, members of the committee, I'm going to do a quick intro and then I'll turn it over to Johanna to walk you through the details of the report. We all know tourism is our industry, our one and only industry in town. It's important that we convey new and exciting things to do every year for tourists to keep them coming back. For many years, the quality, the product offering down at the main end kind of dropped off. And I think we saw what happens when you don't pay attention to it. We lost upwards of 1.2 million tourists over a 12-year period. Last summer, the town purchased properties down at the beachfront. We got businesses up and running. We invested in some short-term activation at the Main Street Market, and we saw what that does. It brings tourists back. Yes, we had fantastic weather, but there was also fantastic weather in some of the years prior to that as well. Just as you think about theme parks, every year at a theme park you'll see a new ride opening. They do that for a reason. It's to keep bringing people back. So what we wanted to talk to you today about are some low-cost things that we could do to enhance what we currently have down on the beachfront. Again, just to show tourists that come back this summer, oh, look what they've done again at the beach. They're really trying to improve their image. So with that, I'll turn it over to Johanna and she can walk through some of the details.
Sure. So there's a number of items and initiatives that are included in this report. The first one is to expand on some of the work that's been done in 2016 with the Main Street Market and include some interactive art installations in the Main Street Market. The market and special event coordinator has obtained a number of quotes, and they're articulated in the report. The recommendation is to award, enter into an agreement with the preferred proponent to construct a number of items. That includes cutouts, pegboard, body pushouts, and some interactive foam noodle art. The price for those is about just under $8,000, and there is a budget allocation under the Main Street Market Entertainment that could be funded through. The second item is to construct a roof over the stage at the Main Street Market. A number of the entertainers last year had made this request. It also makes for the entertainment in the Main Street Park to be a little bit more weatherproof. We did have some community donations last year to go towards the construction of the roof. We're estimating it's about $5,000, but we will go through the proper procurement per the purchasing bylaw and are looking for approval from council to proceed with that. The third item is painting the town-owned buildings along the beachfront. We have been discussing the possibility of partnering with Benjamin Moore. They are the sponsor for Cityline TV, which is a well-viewed home kind of lifestyle show. They'd be willing to partner with us, provide us a very discounted rate on paint, provided that it is the only product used along the beachfront. And as a result, Cityline would feature a 90-second segment on the beachfront improvements. The typical cost to purchase airspace on Cityline is about $2,200 for 30 seconds. So the earned media value is a minimum of $6,600 in partnering with them on that. We've also discussed the opportunity with a prospective tenant for 115 Beach Drive, and they'd be agreeable to helping with some of the costs associated with the painting. And we'd also be looking, if council is comfortable with us, approaching other businesses for corporate sponsorship. We'd like to issue an RFP to go out to procure services to paint the beachfront, and I'm looking to council for approval of that as well. The next item is public art installations at 31 Beach Drive and 57 Beach Drive. Cityline's indicated that if we were to have murals integrated into some of the beachfront as public art installations, they'd be willing to do an additional segment profiling the artist or artists, as well as the beachfront improvements for another 90-second segment on Cityline TV. The next item is murals and graphics along the beachfront. This would include the archways and pillars at 31 Beach Drive, which is the former Splash Building, as well as a board above the awning at 57 Beach Drive. The latter of which could be repurposed or removed and integrated into future development plans if that's something that we wanted to proceed with. Should this be incorporated, the square footage of paint detailed earlier in the report would be reduced from the RFP for the painting services because it would be covered under the mural and graphic design item RFP. Next are public art installations. Many of you may be familiar with the big Toronto sign, the three-dimensional sign that is included in Nathan Phillips Square. It in itself has become an attraction in its own right, including those kind of unique aspects along the beachfront. Draws visitors. Makes it for an iconic destination, an iconic item, and also can gain us some significant traction on social media with people taking pictures with it. We can link a handle or a hashtag to it, and it can trickle out into social media quite quickly, which gives us a lot of additional exposure. The last item is looking for direction to council in regards to staff developing concepts for businesses and other items along the beachfront should the agreement with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry be approved for 2018, as well as moving forward on lifeguard stations, which council had previously approved.
Thank you, Johanna.
One final point I'd like to make. All of what Johanna just walked you through, I think opens up to the ability for corporate sponsorship. So if committee wanted to proceed with this, I think we would go out and knock on some doors and see if some of the businesses in town would be willing to partner with the town and sponsor some of these improvements.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments from Council? Councillor Bray?
Just a comment, I think there's a lot of information in this report. Some's really exciting, some's quite, are things that are easy to support. Others, I would like to see more information. And I'm just wondering if we could split them for individual vote, each paragraph of the recommendation.
So each and every one?
Yeah, so then we'd have a discussion about each one and then a vote.
Madam Clerk? Good to go with that?
Yes, we can do that. I'll just need to prepare some additional motions because we do recorded votes for each of those.
So, okay, yeah, I can read them separately. We could take the vote. Okay, absolutely. All right, Madam Clerk will work on that. Councillor Bray, Deputy Mayor Byfolchi?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can staff just confirm which of these items are not in the 2017 budget? If they're not in the budget, how will they be funded if there is no sponsorship? And overall, what will that cost extra to the town?
Absolutely. So the Main Street Market items, the interactive art installations and the market stage roof are included in the budget for this year. In regards to painting the town-owned buildings and the public art installations, they are not currently within the budget. Part of the recommendation is to go out to the market. There are thresholds included in the report not to exceed, and we'd be coming back to council looking for direction in regards to the quotes that we've received and moving forward on those.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Further to that, I guess myself, I would much rather see, we have buildings down there that we own, and I think we should be keeping them looking nice. I think if we have money in the budget, we should be spending it on that as opposed to adding more at this point that could end up costing the town more. Thank you.
Any other questions or comment from Council? Councillor Bray?
So just, I'm going to keep my comments at this point to the first part, which is the art installations throughout the Main Street Market. And I just wondered if that could maybe be throughout the beachfront, so that rather than just focusing on one very small area that's up an alley, if we could maybe include the whole beach so that all businesses down there have people visiting the front of their store to have their picture taken, not just one small part of the beach.
Just comment on that, anybody?
I think in principle, these art installations are movable. The intention was to put them in the market just to generate a bit more interest for this summer. Again, just to show people that we're adding something to it. In future years, that this could be expanded and taken right across the beachfront, absolutely.
But these are movable, so throughout the summer we could move them as well, is it?
Well, I mean, they're supposed to be attached to posts. So
Okay, all right.
We could take the posts out and move them somewhere else.
Okay, so
I guess that's the one thing that I would like to see is throughout the beachfront. If we're going to be spending money, I think we need to spend it across the beachfront, not just in one area.
right, Councillor Belanger?
Yeah, just a question, thank you, Mayor. A question for Andrew. Andrew, is this, we talked about quite a bit with all of the planning is to create a critical mass that actually accomplishes what we want to do. So I think if we get people to the market that they are going to investigate the beachfront, this is all about attracting an increased number of visits to the beach. So if we spread it too thin, we kind of lose the dynamics of what you're trying to accomplish.
All right, Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just had one question regarding the lifeguard stations. I know there's a discussion we're going to need regarding insurance, and I think we were initially on board with that. I just had a thought that if we don't decide to put lifeguards on the stations, could we look at building those anyway, because they're going to be lit up at night and colorful and everything else, and they don't necessarily have to look like lifeguard station. It could just be an attraction along that main beach area. So it's just food for thought.
Yes, and through you, Your Worship, that's what staff are looking for direction on. We are aware that council did not approve the budget for lifeguards for 2017, but we wanted some direction as to whether or not you still wanted us to proceed with constructing the concepts that you previously saw for the beach itself, subject to the finalization of the agreement. I would suggest at this point in time, it's probably better to target 2018 for doing that, but we're just looking for some direction if you'd like us to proceed with that. With or without lifeguards, it could still be done.
Okay. All right. You ready? Sorry,
Can I
Councillor
make
Bray?
an amendment to that motion, that instead of saying in the Main Street Market, that it's throughout the beachfront?
So you're talking about item number 1, correct?
Number 1, so that,
In the Main Street Market, in the amount of $7,910 inclusive, inclusive of HST and installation. You'd like that to say throughout the throughout the beachfront? There's someone a motion to amend, someone to second that? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Byfolchi.
Your call of the Senate.
Just bear with us a second. No problem, Madam Clerk. So we have Councillor Bray is asked to make a motion to amend, seconded by Deputy Mayor Byfolchi. So we'll need to vote on that first.
So the motion to amend relates to changing the wording to throughout the beachfront?
That's correct. Main Street Market to throughout the beachfront.
Right.
Correct, Councillor Bray? Councillor Belanger?
Just a quick, are we allowed to make a comment related to our vote?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can make a comment. You mean on the amendment or on the original?
Yeah, just like my point is that I believe that we have experts on staff that have studied what would create the best attraction for the beachfront, so I'm just taking that into account when I vote.
That's fine. So I'll read it and I'll change the words and then we'll do that vote. So it's moved by Councillor Bray and seconded by Deputy Mayor Byfolchi that Committee of the Whole directs staff to enter into an agreement with Sawatsky Concept Realty for the creation and installation of interactive art installations in the Main Street Market, installations throughout the beachfront in the amount of $7,910 inclusive of HST and installation. Is that correct, ladies? Good with that?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Stockwell.
Are we voting at the clause as a whole or just by adding those throughout the beach?
You're voting on the amendment. So the amendment is to change it from the Main Street Market to throughout the beachfront.
Got it.
Okay, Councillor Bray?
and just my thought is, a little later in this agenda, we're looking at a lease for somebody at the other end of the beach. And I think if we focus all our marketing effort in one end, we're really not helping the entire business community at the beachfront. So that was my reason for this amendment.
Councillor Smith?
Just one comment, if I may, Your Worship. I believe some of the public art and some of the murals and graphics are going to be done throughout the beachfront, not just at the market, is that correct? So it's just this particular piece that would be at the main beach, at the market? The rest of the, what I read, the rest of this will be done throughout the beach.
That is correct. The first item was intended to be market specific, and the reason for that is we're seeing a lot of families come to the market last summer, a lot of children, etc., and we felt there was a need to have some interactive things for kids to play with, where you can stick your face through and get the photo of Wasaga Beach and the pin push, etc. So it's the intention of getting some family-oriented activities in the market itself, but the rest of the items would be beachfront.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Eagle, did you have a comment?
No.
All right. All right. Councillor Belanger?
Okay, I'm just saying, I'm not able to support the amendment, but at the discretion of our Director of Development and our tourism, if they choose through the course of the year to move the stuff around, I'm okay with that.
Okay, so you can, I understand your point,
Yeah.
Councillor, and you can vote based on your thoughts and feelings. Madam Clerk?
This is to deal with the motion to amend the main motion. Your worship, members of council, you've heard the question. When I call your name, please answer in favor or opposed. Councillor Belanger.
Opposed?
Deputy Mayor Byfuglien.
In favor.
Councillor Bray.
In favor.
Councillor Ego.
Opposed.
Councillor Smith.
Opposed.
And Councillor Stockwell.
Opposed?
And Mayor Smith.
Opposed.
So the motion to amend is defeated, 5-2.
All right, so now read the original motion, and we're doing these all separately, ladies and gentlemen. So, moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Belanger, that Committee of the Whole directs staff to enter into an agreement with Sawatsky Concept Realty for the creation and installation of interactive art installations in the Main Street Market in the amount of $7,910, inclusive of HST and installation. Madam Clerk?
Your worship, members of council, you've heard the question. When I call your name, please answer in favor or opposed. Councillor Belanger.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Byfuglien. Opposed. Councillor Bray.
Opposed.
Councillor Ego.
In favor.
Councillor Smith.
In favor.
Councillor Stockwell.
Favor?
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
The motion carries 5-2.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to the second item. And further, that Committee of the Whole directs staff to proceed to retain a contractor as per the town's purchasing bylaw to construct a roof on the Main Street Market stage. Madam, questions?
Yeah, just a question.
Councillor Bray?
The $5,000 that we thought that would cost, is that coming from the entertainment budget?
Through your worship, I believe that there was an allocation in the capital budget for putting a roof on the stage. So there currently is an approved allocation.
Thank you.
And I would just add, we've actually had some private people come forward and actually donate to this as well.
All right. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
You've heard the question. When I call your name, please answer in favor or opposed. Councillor Belanger.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Byfuglien.
In favor.
Councillor Bray.
In favor.
Councillor Ego.
In favor.
Councillor Smith.
In favor.
Councillor Stockwell.
Favor?
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
The motion carries unanimously.
The third item, and further, that Committee of the Whole directs staff to issue the RFP to paint town-owned buildings at the beachfront in collaboration with Benjamin Moore and City Line, and report back to Committee of the Whole with a recommended contractor and price to undertake the work. Questions or comments? Councillor Bray?
Yeah, comments. These are leased buildings. They were leased as is, where is. So I'm struggling that we now want to spend taxpayers' dollars to paint them, because we were pretty clear in the lease that it was as is, where is. We have a facade improvement program that I think works with businesses that want to improve their premises. So I would encourage them to use the facade improvement program. Or later on in this agenda, there's a lease that actually says a tenant is willing to cost share, so they're willing to pay for the paint. So I don't know why it's recommended to us that we pay for two, I guess the splash and the old splash and the splash, when other leaseholders are willing to pay for this.
Andrew?
So through your worship, the leases are for the interior of the buildings. What we are talking about is painting the exterior. And the reason for this, last summer, if you saw the Main Street Market kiosk, they were really bright colors, very beachy colors. If you look at our beachfront today, it doesn't scream beachfront. We have black buildings, we have brown buildings, we have beige buildings. Not typically what you would find at a beachfront community. So the idea here is to go in and make it a little bit brighter. If you saw what Beaver Tails did last summer, they painted their unit red. A little bit of help with some others. We have not gone and talked to all of the current leaseholders to see if they would be willing to contribute to this. Subject to committee wanting to proceed, that would be the first thing we would do. We would also go out and talk to businesses in town to see if they'd be willing to partner. The idea here is it's quite simple. It's a low cost, quick win beachfront makeover. That's all it is. I'm confident that some leaseholders would be willing to participate, but I can't commit to that because we haven't had that discussion yet.
So perhaps we can make it clear then, Andrew, as we go through this, that if this passes, that's the first step, is to reach out to those tenants to see who is willing to help with that cost.
Yeah.
Councillor Ego?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I think that any time that we're trying to dress up these buildings down there, and for the cost of it, and for the sake of having a paint company help us out with it, and to also get some advertising out of it, I think it's pretty cheap for us to make the place look better than what it was. And I think that most of the stuff in here, as I look at it, I think somewhere along the line, going through these items, we got to start having some confidence in our staff, because they're the ones that have put this report together. And so far, I can't see anything that's out of line in it. Yes, there is some questions, but as far as I'm concerned, this is all stuff that needs to be done, and it should be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bray?
Yeah, just a comment. I don't believe, and I'm sorry if it comes across that I'm questioning the confidence in the staff. My concerns are we're treating one business differently than we're treating another. Our Director of Economic Development pointed out that last year Beaver Tails did spend some money and they fixed up their unit. I believe when you lease as is, where is, you should be responsible for those leasehold improvements.
Where
So
you
for the town to come along and suddenly pick and choose one or two businesses out of 600 businesses in Wasaga Beach, I'm questioning, are we precedent setting and is it fair? That's my
Mr. Mayor.
comments.
Go ahead, Councillor.
As the director has said, it was for the inside of the buildings, was as is. This is the outside of the buildings that we're talking about.
Mr. Director?
I just wanted to add, the other key difference here is we're the landlord. We own the majority of buildings, so we're talking about fixing up the buildings that we own. So in terms of equity, I don't think that sets a precedent across the town because we don't own all of the commercial businesses in town. We're showing leadership by saying, you know what, we want to invest in our own properties to improve our tourism industry. And I think that my recommendation would be that's a smart thing to do.
Deputy Mayor Byfolchi and then Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just looking at this section, and if we're taking them out in pieces, this section is just saying that we're directing staff to go to an RFP.
That's correct.
It is not approving the work. If I'm understanding correctly,
Correct.
It would come back to committee for final approval with the price. So at that point, we could say it's too much money, we're not doing it. Is that
Absolutely,
correct?
that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Worship. Just a comment. I think this needs to be done. I cringed every time I went by the Splash Building last year with the red paint that was chipped and all of that other nonsense in front. So I think George has heard me ask him, when are we going to paint that? When are we going to paint that? And we did do work in front of the blue buildings last year. I think we got shored up with the patio. And I think that this is needed desperately. You know, people take pictures of the beachfront, the cameras are down there, and I don't think we want eyesores down there. So.
All right, any other questions, Deputy Mayor Byfolchi?
Thank you. Just I'm just looking at the way the recommendation. I would think that the one we're talking about now and the next one are kind of tied in together, and they're actually speaking to the same thing. Should they not be voted on together? Because we're basically saying go to an RFP, and in that RFP we're saying single source.
I would agree, absolutely. So we'll tie those two together when we read the question.
Recognizing it will all come back here again.
Absolutely. It's an RFP, so it has to come back to council for final approval. Councillor Smith, and we're going to move on.
Okay, just a question. So in the future, if we approve the new board of directors for the beachfront, this won't be coming to council in future, is that correct? That will all be dealt by the new group?
That's my understanding. Do you wish to elaborate on that, Mr. CAO? It's your report.
Thank you, Your Worship. It all depends on the timing in terms of the formation of the management board and if council approves it. So it's all subject to timing.
Okay, thank you.
And subject to approval. All right, I'll read the question. So it's, and we're going to join these two together, Madam Clerk, all right? So in further that committee of the whole directs staff to issue the RFP to paint the town-owned buildings at the beachfront in collaboration with Benjamin Moore and City Line and report back to committee of the whole with the recommended contractor and the price to undertake the work. And further that committee of the whole directs staff to single source Benjamin Moore paint in the RFP as a condition of the partnering with City Line and further restrict the RFP to local contractors who operate in Wasaga Beach. Madam Clerk? Oh, sorry, Councillor Bray.
One comment, looking at a lease, it clearly says the tenant shall at its own expense maintain and keep the leased premises and every part thereof in good order. They need to make all needed repairs and replacements of the leased premises, including without limitation, repairs to the interior, the exterior of the leased premises, as well as electrical, plumbing, blah, blah, blah. So I guess I'm looking for clarity as to who should be paying for the outside.
Andrew, do you wish to respond before I call on the council?
Yeah, so I think the simple answer is, and I don't know if I'm stealing your thunder, but the folks that are down there that are currently leasing, they may be quite happy with the exterior look of their building. So if we were to say, we need you to go and repaint the exterior, they could say, sorry, not interested, it's quite fine to me. So I think this is trying to improve the aesthetics and help them. We're in this together. So as I committed earlier, I think the first thing we would do is knock on all their doors and say, here's what we want to do. We want to work with you. Are you willing to contribute financially to this? If they say no, I don't think there's a way to force them to do it. If there's a gaping hole in the exterior of the building, then that lease clause would allow us to say you need to fix that if they caused it. But to do aesthetic improvements, I don't think we can force that upon a tenant.
Councillor Stockwell?
Mr. Mayor, my only comment is that I don't think there's anything strange about leasing a building, whether it be for your family or for your business or what have you, and suggesting to the owner every so often that he paint the outside of the building. I mean, to me, that's pretty common. So I just think we're looking for problems here that aren't really there.
All right, Madam Clerk?
You've heard the question. When I call your name, please answer in favor or opposed. Councillor Belanger.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Byfuglien.
In favor.
Councillor Brink.
In favor?
Councillor Ego.
In favor?
Councillor Smith.
In favor?
Councillor Stockwell.
In favor?
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
Carries unanimously.
All right, moving on to the next item, and further that Committee of the Whole directs staff to issue an RFP to secure an artist to paint murals on 31 Beach Drive and 57 Beach Drive and report back to committee with the recommended artist concepts and price to undertake the work not to exceed $20,500 inclusive of HST and installation. And so I'll make clear on this one, as well as the deputy pointed out in the last one, that this is an RFP, so this will come back to council for final approval. Nothing will be done until that comes back to us. All right, questions, Deputy Mayor Byfuglien?
Thank you. Just because I can't remember what was said at the beginning, is this included in the 2017 budget already, or is this something that would be over and above?
This would be in addition to the 2017 budget, but similar to the other items that we've discussed, we would be going out to local businesses to seek corporate sponsorship.
But if we didn't get corporate sponsorship, this is a cost, and where would it come from?
It's over and above.
But where would we take the money from?
We would come back to the committee and with some suggestions on that.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
You've heard the question. When I call your name, please answer in favor or opposed. Councillor Belanger.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Byfuglien.
Opposed?
Councillor Brink.
Opposed?
Councillor Ego.
In favor?
Councillor Smith.
In favor?
Councillor Stockwell.
Favor?
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
Carries 5-2.
Thank you. Next item, and further that Committee of the Whole directs staff to issue an RFP for a public art installation on the roof of 93 Beach Drive and report back to Committee of the Whole with the recommended artist concept and price to undertake the work not to exceed $6,500 inclusive of HST and installation. And again, this will come back to council when the RFP is completed for approval. Questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Byfuglien.
Thank you. Just the same as the last, so this is not included. This would be over and above. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Smith?
Yes, just a comment, Your Worship, is that, we are celebrating Canada's 150, and I think this is a great project. If we could just put it under an umbrella of Canada 150 is to do everything we can down there.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Madam Clerk?
When I call your name, please answer in favor or opposed. Councillor Belanger.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Byfuglien.
Opposed?
Councillor Brink.
Opposed?
Councillor Ego.
In favor?
Councillor Smith.
In favor?
Councillor Stockwell.
Favor?
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
Carries 5-2.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And finally, that Committee of the Whole directs staff to prepare concepts and budget estimates for the business activation and public art installations within the public beach area at Beach Area 1, subject to the completion of the management agreement with the MNRF for consideration in the 2018 budget process. Questions or comments? Councillor Ego?
Yes, you, Mr. Mayor, through the CEO. What time are we expecting, again, a date for this agreement with the MNRF?
The agreement is being tabled today and subject to any modifications and council consideration. It'll be back before council in March.
Thank you very much.
All right, any other questions or comments, Councillor Bray?
This is where they were looking for direction on the lifeguard stations and whether to construct them in 2017 or wait till 2018. So my opinion would be wait till 2018 if we're not going to put them on the beach in 2017.
Yes,
Andrew?
Through you, Your Worship, I think if the committee agrees with this recommendation, we would come back with a whole package that would include the lifeguard stands, whether or not there are lifeguards in them to be determined. But there are a lot of ideas that we have that we could bring forward for consideration in 2018.
All right, so I think, are we clear here, committee, just by a nod of heads, that we're looking to have them come back with respect to budget for 2018? Did you have something else to add, Councillor Bray?
No, thank you.
No? All right. Madam Clerk?
You've heard the question. When I call your name, please answer in favor or opposed. Councillor Belanger.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Miffelch. In favor. Councillor Bray.
In favor?
Councillor Ego.
In favor.
Councillor Smith.
In favor.
Councillor Stockwell.
Favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
Carries unanimously.
Through that one. All right. Moving on to item number 5B, the Beachfront lease at 115 Beach Drive, units 1 to 7. Andrew?
Yes, so this is a tenant who currently is leasing 93 Beach Drive, Unit C. Flavors on the beach. They approached after hearing that our past tenant of 115 Beach Drive had vacated. They're interested in taking all 7 units at 115 Beach Drive. They're an experienced restaurateur, run a catering business in Oakville, and they would like to essentially create an open concept restaurant at 115 Beach Drive, and then also use the former Bubble Tea as a restaurant as well, probably an ice cream gelato type restaurant. So they have put in an offer to lease for all 7 units for your consideration.
All right, questions or comments?
I would add that they're looking to terminate their current lease on the 93 Beach Drive Unit C and move over into this unit.
And I don't believe they ever opened there, did they?
No, their lease
Just
starts
the end of the summer?
It starts May 1st, so they've never actually gone in to meet.
All right. Deputy Mayor Byfolchi?
Thank you. I guess I just want to be on record as saying that after reviewing the report, I have concerns and I won't be voting in favor.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Bray?
A couple of comments. I did not support the initial lease to the tenant that was there last summer because of the rate. I know we had gone to the market and worked with real estate and said, hey, what do you think it's worth? And then we leased it for a lot less. The danger with doing that is you have an impact on all the businesses outside of the beachfront area because we're now subsidizing lease rates. I think if you want to look at economic development for the town of Wasaga Beach, we can't subsidize heavily one area because the rest of the town does suffer. And again, this is a lease rate at $7.47 a square foot, which is incredibly low compared to other buildings that are down there. And my other comment about the lease was when you go through the details, the only permitted use was for a takeout restaurant. So perhaps Section 8 needs to be looked at just before you, if it does go forward, because I thought you said they wanted to have sit down indoor,
So was this sit down in the building or was this a patio? As I looked at it, they were looking for a patio outside, correct?
It's a bit of both. They're looking for some limited seating indoors as well as a patio, but there would be a takeout function as well. So I agree with the councillor's comment that we should probably amend it to have a sit-down restaurant plus takeout.
All right, thank you. Other questions or comments from council? Seeing none, Madam Clerk? Oh, I'll read the motion first. Moved by Councillor Belanger, seconded by Councillor Smith. Resolved, the Committee of the Whole recommends to Council that the current lease between Day Sol Inc., operating as Flavors on the Beach for 93 Beach Drive, Unit C, be terminated with no penalty. And further, that Committee of the Whole recommends that Council that the offer to lease from Day Sol Inc., operating as Flavors at the Beach for 115 Beach Drive, Units 1 to 7, for a 5-year term with an option to renew for a further 5 years based on satisfactory performance and Council approval, be accepted. And finally, that Committee of the Whole recommends to Council that direction be provided to staff to prepare the encroachment agreement between the Town of Wasaga Beach and Del Sol Inc., operating as Flavors on the Beach for use of the patio area in front of 115 Beach Drive, Units 1 to 7, for approval by Council. Madam Clerk.
Your Worship, members of Council, you've heard the question. When I call your name, please answer in favor or opposed. Councillor Belanger.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Miffelch. Opposed. Councillor Bray. Opposed. Councillor Ego.
In favor.
Councillor Smith.
In favor.
Councillor Stockwell.
Favor.
Mayor Smith?
In favor?
The motion carries 5-2.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to item 5C, 2017 Tourism Work Plan. And Andrew and Johanna, this is you as well.
Through your worship, I wanted to present a work plan to council for their information in regards to the activities associated with tourism. The work plan focuses on 4 different pillars: strategic marketing, product development, industry support, and visitor services. It includes information in regards to target markets, consumer segments, marketing collateral, advertising media, digital media, and other marketing efforts under marketing strategically. Under the product development section, it focuses on beachfront improvements, which we've just discussed, and sector-specific product development such as cycle tourism and trails and paddling. Under industry support, it discusses communications with the industry and industry engagement opportunities. And under visitor services, it focuses on consumer experiences and signage, and also includes some performance measures. Happy to answer any questions that council might have.
All right, questions or comments from staff? Councillor Bray?
Just a comment under communications. You were talking about customer service training, educational workshops. Things like that used to be available through the chamber. And I know many years ago when we started our business, we took part in French for the tourist industry, and it was like a 3-day course you could send your staff on. And it was awesome because we were getting a lot of Quebec visitors, and they were able to kind of come in and learn their please and thank you and how to serve in French. So I think it's exciting that someone's taking over that. I think there's a real gap for small business in our town. Thank you.
I couldn't agree more, Councillor. It's very important, especially with the amount of French tourists we've seen come back to Wasaga Beach, which is great. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll read the question. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Belanger. Resolved that Committee of the Whole receive the 2017 Tourism Work Plan for information. Madam Clerk?
Your worship, members of council, you've heard the question. When I call your name, please answer in favor or opposed. Councillor Belanger.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Fulci.
In favor?
Councillor Grant.
In favor?
Councillor Ego.
In favor?
Councillor Smith.
In favor?
Councillor Stockwell.
In favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
Carries unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item 5D, Municipal Grants and Program Awards. Monica, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Your Worship. So, a couple of years back, we changed the way the approved process worked for the allocation of grants. This year, for 2017's budget, there was a request of just over $29,000. And in order for an actual grant request to be included, they first have to provide us with the grant application. Then it's taken out to all members of council so that they can review the grant applications, as well as take a look at what they feel would be a fair grant award for that particular organization. In order for a grant to qualify for any money, it has to get a majority of council, so at least 4 votes, and then that amount is averaged out. And if we have excess budget, then it's just the amount that the average is calculated. If we are in a situation where there's more ask than there is budget, then it's allocated based on to stick to the normal or the total budget amount. So in this case, essentially the ask was a little less than the budget, so we were able to provide what council determined as appropriate grant award. So Schedule A, or Appendix A, originally on the online published version, things kind of, we don't know why, but the characters moved up on us, so I've provided council with a clean copy of it. So essentially, what the ask is for is that Junior Achievement received $1,833. The Shrine Club received the same. M&R for the Friends of Nancy Island, the Piping Plover Appreciation Night, would receive $142. The Stainer Granite Club would receive $4,500. Wasaga Community Theatre, $4,464. And then St. Noel Chabanel would receive $3,900. So the total allocation out of the budget for 2017 is $16,673.
All right, Councillor Stockwell?
Yeah, just on a point of order, Mr. Chairman. I see the list that's been handed out as the Stainer Curling Club, and Councillor Belanger did said he had a conflict, and here it shows that it's 5,000, so that has to be corrected to 0. But does that affect the final contribution?
Well, I'm going to calculate it for you right now. It would, sorry, Your Worship, through you, it would impact the contribution by just $125. So it would be reduced to $4,375 if we removed Councillor Boulanger's vote on that particular item.
$4,375?
$75, yeah. Let me just double check. 1, 2.
Councillor Belanger, did you wish to respond to that?
Yeah, just a clarification. I talked to the CAO about this, and he told me I had two options. One was a possible pecuniary interest, which is what I chose to indicate. The grant was for a program for school children. Two of the schools are from Wasaga Beach. We are putting through approximately 250 children, with more than 50% of them from the Wasaga Beach.
But, sorry, Councillor, I'm just going to stop you.
Okay.
You declared it pecuniary or possible.
Oh,
There's no
sorry.
possible. Either it is a, I understand you wrote possible, but you either have a pecuniary interest or
Sorry,
you don't.
the CAO told me my option was possible pecuniary interest, so maybe he could explain that.
Well, yeah, I need to understand what possible means in this case.
Well, the possible or potential pecuniary interest, and as it's indicated, Councillor Belanger is a member of the club, and if this grant was not approved by council, then the club has some options in terms of how it may provide this program, and one of those options is to go back to the members and say to the members, we may want to increase your fees in order to support this program. So there's an indirect conflict because the member of council is a member of that club. So that's why the term possible or potential is there. My role was just to respond to the councillor's inquiry, and I provided that option to him, and I provided another option as well.
But to be clear, and correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Clerk, a pecuniary interest is basically a financial gain by the member. In this case, there would be no financial gain. If anything, it would cost him more for his membership. It would be a loss. So at the end of the day, I'm struggling with possible. I mean, we have a pecuniary interest or we don't. And we need to clarify that. And I'm saying that because for the councillor to continue to speak for or against when he's declared a pecuniary interest, I think is on shaky ground. So I want to make sure that the councillor and the rest of council are understanding of this and we're on safe ground. So I'm going to ask for some clarification here. Again, and I'm looking to the rest of the council as well. I believe you either have a pecuniary interest or you don't. Before you say anything further,
No,
councillor,
I wasn't going to speak to anything other than in the CAO saying possible, I thought I had to try to indicate that I believed I did
Sure,
not.
and I understand that. Deputy Mayor Byfolchi?
Thank you. I was just going to say, in my time on council, you either have a conflict or you do not. You cannot be somewhere in the middle. If you have any type of a conflict, you have to pull from the vote, the table, anything. This possible thing, I mean, you can throw the word in there and say it's possible, but by saying that, there's the potential and you need to step back.
Just to point out, that was at the CAO's direction. It was,
I understand that, Councillor, but, and again, you know,
I'm okay.
I understand that, but at the end of the day, pecuniary interest has to be claimed by the individual. Nobody else can claim or advise you on that. So I understand where the CAO is coming from as well. I'm bringing this up now because I want to make sure that everyone here is on solid ground before we proceed forward. Councillor Bray?
That's my question. We sign a form for a pecuniary conflict of interest. Is that the same as a conflict of interest? Because there's a difference in being a member of a club and not voting to give that club money. That's kind of a conflict of interest because I'm part of it. But it's not pecuniary because there may or may not be a direct cash. Should we be filling out that form or should there be a different form for a conflict of interest? And would that maybe make this easier to decide?
Very good question. Madam Clerk, is there a difference?
If I recall correctly, the Conflict of Interest Act relates specifically to pecuniary interests only, direct or indirect. And it's up to the individual to determine whether they have an interest or not and to declare it at that meeting. Should they choose to declare, then they need to excuse themselves from the discussion.
So nothing in the Municipal Act that I'm aware of with respect to conflict of interest. It's a pecuniary interest or it's not, correct? Yeah. that is correct, Madam Clerk?
Sorry, Your Worship, speaking directly to the Conflict of Interest Act, that's my reference. With the other, I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. I'm going to let you speak, Councillor, but
Okay.
understand, I'm cautioning you whether you should or you shouldn't. I don't think you should. but-
all I'm saying is I'm fine. The amount of money is not a big difference, but I would tell you how far do you take that? Like, for instance, if you have a relative that does business with the town and they profit from that and they give you a bigger Christmas gift, is that a pecuniary interest?
Again, it's entirely up to the individual whether or not they claim a pecuniary interest. It's not up to anyone else.
Oh, okay. So then
So if they claim it and they didn't need to, well, better safe than sorry. If they don't claim it and they should have, they open themselves up for possible future ramifications.
Okay.
So entirely up to the individual, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? Sorry, Deputy Mayor Byfolchi?
Thank you. I guess my only comment would be that the motion reflect that there may need to be a change in the amount. I think if we're going to do it, we need to keep it proper, and if there's a conflict been declared, then the number needs to change.
Absolutely. So I think we amend this motion before we vote on it, if everyone's in agreement with that.
So if I may, my motion actually references Appendix A, so if Madam Clerk will let us provide the numbers, and then you can vote on that, just to the way where
Change
is
the
that
number?
is that fair? Yes, that work? Okay.
Okay.
So that would leave junior achievement at 1833, the Shrine Club at 1833, Friends of Nancy Island at 142, Stainer Granite Curling Club at 4375, the Community Theatre at 4464, and St. Noel Chabanel School at 3900. So it brings us down just below the 16,673. So 16,500-ish would be what we'll be contributing to that this year. And I can provide you with this, Madam Clerk, as a backup to it. Okay.
Madam Treasurer, if you could just give council here and the public, so the remaining access, what will happen with that now?
Well, if additional grant applications come forward throughout the year, then we'll have some monies available to go forward with that, or we keep it and you know, just stay where we're at, but we'll see how things go for this.
So in future, and I'm doing this for the public's understanding.
Yes.
In future, if someone else was to come forward now for a grant, we could consider that because there'll be money left in
That's
the budget.
right. That's right. Yeah.
Councillor Smith?
Thank you. Just one comment, Your Worship. I'm really happy to see junior achievement on the list. As when I was EDO here, I believe Rotary paid for junior achievement at one time, and I had the opportunity to be a teacher for 2 years. And I think it's a great program for the kids, and I'm glad to see it pop up here.
Thank you, Councillor Bray.
Just through this, they're able to expand the program to more schools. So I think Rotary might sponsor 2 classrooms, but now maybe the town is also sponsoring 2 classrooms, so more of these kids will get the education.
Councillor Belanger?
Yeah, I just had a question on the process, because the Hope Haven Therapeutic Riding, who did not get a grant, and they heard from a number of people that they weren't located in town. I watched quite a documentary on CNN, Heroes, this year, and it was about a very similar organization. And if we had children from our town that could benefit the way they were showing on that documentary, and if we don't offer that service in town, I just felt maybe a little bit of discussion may have changed the outcome. And
All right.
Mr. Mayor? I'm sorry.
Sorry, one second. I'm just going to let the
I'm sorry, I didn't realize.
Treasurer respond. Thank you, Councillor.
So if I may, thank you, Your Worship. Included in the grant application, it does actually specifically identify that there are residents from Wasaga Beach. I clarified that also with the organization because, of course, you know, at the end of the day, it is taxpayers' money and it has to benefit the community, and that's basically what our policy says. So it was included in the grant application, but if it's something that you would like to bring these people forward and have the discussion, since there is funds available, I can certainly put that out there.
Make a deputation from them or something to that effect.
Yeah.
To that. Councillor Ego.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Belanger, for bringing that up. This is a sort of a sore spot, or not a sore spot, but a thing that I've been involved with. My daughter teaches it, as a matter of fact, or did teach it. If you ever seen these children, and most of them are underprivileged, handicapped, mentally challenged. And if you see the response that they get from these animals, it's amazing. It's absolutely out of this world. And I would like to think that the children of Wasaga Beach would have the opportunity, if they needed this, to be able to participate in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bray?
Just to that, I think when I read through the application, there were a couple of kids from Wasaga Beach, but that this was actually for garden on the property that was located outside of Wasaga Beach, so that was where I kind of took the whole thing into play. It wasn't really a program per se, it was more...
And I face the same thing. So it might not be a bad idea. I don't know how we go about this today, but maybe we should have these folks come forward and do a deputation. Maybe we'll understand it a little better. Maybe
Next year they can rewrite the grant with program specific, maybe your...
Your Worship, to
Madam
be
Treasurer?
clear, Councillor Bray is correct. This particular application was in reference to a garden plot project that they were doing for that particular location, so it is very true.
Deputy Mayor Byfolchi?
Thank you. I guess my comment on this would be that we do have a policy. This is how we gauge who gets what money. I would have no issue if they wanted to come forward so there's a better understanding for next year or something like that. But if we start opening it all up again, we're starting the process over. We've done our process. I think we last year went through it a few times. I think it's been nailed down the way it needs to be, and I guess I don't support if they've gone through this process and the majority hasn't said to give money. I don't think we should start opening it up, because I think we're opening a can of worms.
All right, other questions or comments? All right, I'll read the question. Moved by Councillor Ego, seconded by Deputy Mayor Byfolchi. Resolved, the Committee of the Whole of Council recommends to Council that it approve the grants listed as attached in Appendix A under the approval of the approved process for the allocation of grants for the annual municipal grants program. Madam Clerk.
Your Worship, members of Council, you've heard the question. When I call your name, please answer in favor or opposed. Councillor Boulanger.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Byfolchi.
In favor?
Councillor Bray.
In favor?
Councillor Ego.
In favor.
Councillor Smith.
In favor.
Councillor Stockwell.
Favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor?
Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And moving on to item 5E, 2016 year-end memo. Madam Treasurer?
Thank you, Your Worship. So preparation has begun. Our audit is the last week of February, so we are well on our way to reconciling all our accounts and getting everything in order. Essentially, these are still preliminary because, of course, we're still waiting on our government business enterprise, so the hydro entries that would be required. And each year we come forward with a preliminary financial statement that says this is where we think we're going to end up within, a few dollars here and there. I think it's a very good indication of where we will end up for the final financial statements. But certainly there are some discussions that need to occur in terms of what we would like to do with the surplus. So there is a surplus both on the capital and the operational side. So overall, the net surplus was just over about 1.3 million, largely because there are projects that have not completed. So I think it's important to understand that when we're doing these transfers, and we'll go through them line by line so everybody understands, it's in some cases, in most cases, it's because a project is carrying over 2 years. So for example, for public works equipment, we haven't received the truck that they've ordered yet. So sometimes we transfer the money to reserves for at the end of 2016 so that when the bill comes in 2017 and we actually receive the truck, then the funds are used because the taxes are raised in 2016. This happens because sometimes it takes 6 months for a plow or sander or those types of vehicles take a long time. So it does happen from time to time. Even with road projects, the same type of situation happens. We get so far up until we have an early winter or late winter, and sometimes we get a little further, but oftentimes that is what happens. Now, so if we talk specifically about what I'm requesting to transfer for the capital surplus, it's essentially all public works items. Public works equipment, some day labor projects that will be finished up in the early spring, and a storm drainage project that has begun and will be finished up in early spring as well. So that surplus is included in the original amount that we just talked about, and that's about $540,000. So all of that money that we raised taxation in 2016, the actual bills won't come till 2017, and we can't just accrue for them and keep them in 2016 because we haven't received the goods or we haven't finished the work. So that 540,000 will be transferred, or what is being requested to be transferred. For the downtown plan, there is a surplus there right now of 214,000. Now, a portion of that is due to the final document not being available or not being finished until May, which was always the plan. So certainly there's some money there to put into reserves so that we have it available when the actual document is completed and the final bill is processed. And then there's also about 133,000 there that in total, the budget for the downtown master plan was 500,000. I think at the time of the 2016 budget, there were still some unanswered questions, and 500,000 was the amount that was put aside. What I'm requesting this year is that we put the 133 excess back into reserves, because as Council may recall, all of the 2017 monies were to come out of reserves. So this would provide us with a little less impact to the overall reserves if we have that money available as well. So that is why we've got that number in there. When it comes to the Main Street market, there is a deficit there of about 217,000 against budget. So in this particular case, again, in December, when we passed the 2016 budget, there was a variance requested in January right after, which then requested that the servicing, which is the most expensive part of this situation, be increased from 15,000 to 65,000. Now, the servicing came in at quite a bit higher than that, so that's a large reason for the variance. And at that time, in January, when the EDO brought forward the new proposed plan, it was to finance it over the next 5 years. Now, Council does have some options when it comes to this particular item, because there is a favorable variance or a favorable surplus in the corporate initiatives account in the neighborhood of about 300,000. So there is the option to actually pay out the deficit specifically to Main Street Market using corporate initiative funds, or building it as what was presented back in January of 2016 and keeping it as a negative reserve and have it paid back over 5 years. So that was the way it was brought forward. Something similar we did with the MPA, the Municipal Picnic Area at Beach Area 2. The difficulty with that is right now that depending on the level of funding they receive for the grant for the entertainment and the works that the EDO has just presented earlier tonight, for 2017 at least, I'm not sure that there will be a surplus until we know how all of those things are generated. So that's a bit of a difficult part that essentially in 2017 I don't know that for sure until we see what these numbers come out as. That there would be any funds to offset that. So that's something to take into consideration as well while we're going through each of these transfers to reserves. We also have a debenture payment. So the Retro Light program, the debenture payment was not actually due until January. We had budgeted for it to happen in July. The money that, in order to fund it, went through reserves, so this is essentially an offset to that. So there's 315,000 that will go back into the capital replacement reserve because the delay in terms of when the actual funding was received. And I also have a big whopper there in terms of the capital asset replacement reserve. Back in November, I presented the asset management plan, and we talked about, that of course we're not unlike other municipalities, and there is a deficit in terms of what we have been putting away for our assets and what is actually required based on those amounts. This 650,000 goes a long way to help us towards that goal. Again, not uncommon. All Ontario municipalities are in similar situations. This just puts us a leg ahead a little bit and then provides us with some additional funds. I think that is about all. I have to take some questions. I know it's a lot.
All right, questions or comments for the treasurer? Councillor Bray?
Just one. When we're talking about the net surplus, there was 135,000 for interest earned on a hydro note. Is that in addition to the 400,000 dividend that we would typically receive from Wasaga Distribution?
If I may, Your Worship, yes, that is. So actually later on in this agenda, we talk about the hydro promissory note, and that is interest that we receive each year. We sometimes we do not budget for it because the dividend can be negotiated each year. We do have it at 400,000, and we've gotten 400,000 over the last several years, so it always becomes a surplus for the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll read the novel. Sorry, the question.
Wow.
Moved by Councillor Eagle, seconded by Councillor Smith. The Committee of the Whole of Council recommend to Council that it receive the preliminary 2016 financial statements for information, and further that any remaining surplus from capital projects be transferred to the applicable reserve or reserve fund for that department, plus or minus 539,000, and further that the remaining surplus from debenture payments for debenture number 2016-120 be transferred from the capital replacement reserve due to the timing of actual debenture closing date and the payment schedule of $315,787, and further that the deficit of $217,399 for the Main Street Market be funded through the Main Street Market Reserve to be repaid over a 5-year period, and further that the $133,617 of the surplus operating funds related to the Downtown Master Plan be reserved for further future use in the Downtown Master Plan Reserve. And further that the $79,972 of the surplus operating funds relating to the Downtown Master Plan study be reserved for the final report costs expected in 2017 of the Downtown Master Plan Reserve. And further that the $56,000 of surplus operating funds relating to the winter maintenance be reserved for future use in the Winter Maintenance Reserve. And further that the surplus operating funds related to policing be reserved for future use of $27,692, and further that $15,000 of the surplus operating funds related to the youth strategy be reserved for future use Parks, Facilities, and Recreation Reserve. And further that $12,379 of the surplus operating funds relating to the Emerald Ash Borer be reserved for future use in the EAB Reserve, and further that the $650,000 of surplus operating funds be transferred to the Capital Asset Replacement Fund to assist in closing the funding gap for the Asset Management Plan. And finally, that the remaining surplus deficit operating funds estimated to be $385,000 be transferred to or from the Working Funds and Tax Rate Stabilization Reserve account on a 50-50 allocation between the funds. Questions or comments? Madam Clerk.
Your Worship, members of council, you've heard the question. When I call your name, please answer in favor or opposed. Councillor Boulanger.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Bethel. In favor. Councillor Brant. In favor. Councillor Eagle.
In favor.
Councillor Smith.
In favor.
Councillor Stockwell.
In favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 5F, interest rate and on promissory note with Wasaga Distribution. Madam Treasurer.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as is laid out in the report, back in the year 2000 when Hydro was going through the amalgamations and creating the organizations as they were separate from municipalities, a promissory note was issued to Wasaga Distribution in the amount of $3.5 million, $3,593,000 essentially. At that time, the actual documentation declares that the interest rate be based on a 10-year Canada bond rate. I've listed those rates in the body of the report, but essentially they're less than 2% across that time frame. The reality is that Wasaga Distribution has been paying us at a much higher rate, as high as 5.32% at one point back in 2011. After going through their latest rates application with the Ontario Energy Board, it has become very clear to us that it's very important that there is a bylaw and an actual note paper put together for this particular note. That being said, it also means that we have to declare what the interest rate will be going forward. At this point, the stated rate, or the rate that is allowed to be included in Wasaga Distribution's rate application, is at 3.78. The OAB sets that standard, and certainly we would abide by it, provided that that rate doesn't change over time. So at this point, what I'm requesting is that we stick to the 3.78. It doesn't mean at any time if we go out to market and we see we can get rates at a better amount, that council can't make the request to call the promissory note. We'll certainly, over the next couple of years, keep an eye on what that rate is, the published rate of the OEB is, so that when the time is needed, we can go back and get that updated if it's necessary. It's a very fair rate. It's certainly higher than, I think, if we all looked into our GICs and the things that we're getting, it's certainly higher than that. In terms of what the town is receiving outside of the equity fund, because we'll remove equity from the situation, we're in about the 3.3, 3.2 range in terms of our overall investments. So I do think it is a fair and a reasonable rate.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for the treasurer? Councillor Boulanger?
Yeah, just up until now, and Monica, I know we've had discussion, but I had heard at one point I believe in a presentation to council that our local utility was carrying no debt. Now they owe us $3.5 million since 2002, and my understanding is they've paid interest only, that they have not paid down any principal.
That is true. It is interest only. I'm not sure in reference to whether they do have debt or don't have debt. I don't get the level of detail in terms of the hydro, but certainly not something I would have shared. But
they owe the town $3.5 million.
Yes, but I don't know about a presentation that said that they didn't have any debt.
All right. Other questions or comments? Councillor Stockwell?
Yeah, I don't know who to direct this to, Mr. Mayor, so I'll direct it to you. Has there been any discussion in the past that maybe they should start paying this debt down?
What I can tell you, Councillor, is there has been discussion with respect to the last rate application, and what was determined from the Ontario Energy Board actually in that rate application was that Wasaga Distribution was actually paying more than they were allotted by the Ontario Energy Board. So they were breaking the rules. They were paying more interest than the Ontario Energy Board says they're allowed to pay because that's regulated. And I think, as the treasurer said, it's 3.78%. And they were paying at one point as high as?
So as high as 5.32, but if I can just make a clarification to that point. As high, the 3.78, and use the amount towards their application for rates. So that's the key. It doesn't mean they can't pay higher. It just means if you want to include those costs towards your rates application, that's the ceiling that OEB would accept.
Right, which was what I was getting to. So the OEB allows a threshold, and the maximum is 3.78. Yeah. They were paying more than that, and the OEB said, pay what you want, but you can only claim against the rate application or charge back to the customer, if you will, up to 3.78%, which is why the communication took place then, of course, between distribution and the town to bring that rate to what it needs to be, which was 3.78.
But my question is, really...
To answer your question, yes. There has been no discussion at this point that I'm aware of, unless it was prior to myself sitting on the board, with respect to paying down that debt.
But wouldn't that be something that would make sense to start discussing?
I can assure you that the board has set up future dates in the not too distant future to sit down and discuss many things, this being one of them.
And that when they do that, will they come back and involve council in their discussion?
I will certainly ask that the board report back to staff with respect to what the board decides they wish to do, pay it down, not pay it down, so that the board can bring that to council.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Byfolchi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just because a comment was made, I want to make sure, so they were not breaking the rules.
If I may, Your Worship, I'm not sure whether they were including it in their rates application. I'm not privy to that information, but certainly what they were paying us was higher than what they could include in their rates application, and certainly higher than what the actual original note stated.
Okay, thank you.
And I will get clarification on that from distribution, bring it back if you like, Deputy Mayor Byfolchi. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Worship. Just a comment. Based on my comment I made at one of the council meetings is, if we decide to keep hydro, There is a 3.5 debt to us. And also, if we decide to keep it, that if something happens in the near future or 5 years, 10 years from now that requires additional funding, if we're only collecting interest and we still are owed the 3.5, I don't think a lot of people know that. And they would consequently have to come back to town to ask for even more money. So just caution people, myself, when they're thinking seriously about this, to remember that this is here.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor, I want to keep us on track. We're not here to discuss the distribution and its future.
Thank you.
We're simply here to discuss the report at hand, but thank you, Councillor Smith. All right, any other questions or comments pertaining to the report? All right, seeing none, I will read the question. Moved by Councillor Belanger, seconded by Councillor Smith. The Committee of the Whole of Council recommend to Council that it authorize staff to create a bylaw to confirm the interest rate of 3.78% on the promissory note held with Wasaga Distribution. Madam Clerk?
Your worship, members of council, you've heard the question. When I call your name, please answer in favor or opposed. Councillor Blanchet.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Byfolchi. In favor. Councillor Bray. In favor. Councillor Ego.
In favor?
Councillor Smith.
In favor.
Councillor Stockwell.
Favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to item 5G, grants provided through Wasaga Distribution, Inc. Madam Treasurer?
Thank you, Your Worship. So in years past, and this year as in years past, we are continuing to ask Wasaga Distribution to fund a certain portion of the community grants program. Each year, it's been in the neighborhood of just over $30,000. This year, because we do not have an ask yet from the hospital, from Collingwood Hospital, it's a little bit less. And, I suspect that at some point the hospital will be coming forward to request those funds as they have in years past. But at this point, there's about $21,000 that is available that have been applied for, in terms of the grant application. The grant applications work the same way as they do with the town funding. They come into the town, we review them, make sure that the information is all there. With respect to the YMCA Strong Kids campaign, that is not something we've received applications for in the past, as it's just an annual grant that we have provided each year. There's not really much else to say other than that's the amounts here.
I just want to elaborate a little bit, Madam Treasurer, with respect to the hospital. The hospital will not be coming to council to ask for any funding under the policies and procedures with respect to the county and the allotted funds that the county gives to hospitals. There's a collective pool there that individual municipalities now do not have to deal or shouldn't be dealing with hospitals on funding requests. It's done through the county. That is pooled, of course, by all 16 municipalities and the 2 separated cities within the county. And that is how funding is given on behalf of each municipality to the hospital. So it has been made very clear to all hospitals that they are not to approach councils and request funding. Having said that, I want to point out that I believe that our hospital is extremely important to our communities, and it's a decision that this council may wish to discuss or look to in the future, whether or not this council wants to go over and above what the county is prepared to do and approach the hospital with any funding. That's entirely up to us, but the hospital is not to approach the municipality. So I wanted to be clear on that. Did you have anything to add to that, Deputy Mayor?
No, I think that sounds right.
All right. Councillor Belanger?
Just for clarification, is WDI being a private company, if they were to donate to the hospital, it's not truly the municipality, right?
That's correct, but the hospital then would have to approach WDI, not through council.
Right, but if they had historically done that, that would be appropriate for them to do.
They could reach out to any private or public entity they wanted to, other than council. Did you want to add something?
Sorry, I just wanted to add, and to be clear, it's because of a pledge that the municipality had made. We fund it through Wasaga Distribution because, of course, they receive a tax benefit and we don't. So it was on behalf of the municipality what they were providing at the time, but certainly I guess that would be up to the board to decide if they continued.
And so the question that council will need to answer is, does this council wish to continue to provide, what was it, 5,000?
It used to be 8,400. That was for the New Age of Care campaign. So over that 5-year period, 2011 to 2015, we provided $42,000 to the hospital.
So perhaps I'll ask the clerk to, for future reference, to get on one of our agendas that for future meetings, we'll do this through the proper procedures, that council will have that discussion whether or not we want to add any funding. Because the hospital is not going to be approaching the town individually. Any questions or comments? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just through to the treasurer, see if my memory serves me right. Last year they didn't ask for anything from Hydro, but money was set aside for the hospital. Am I reading that right? That the 8,400 UPAT still remains in the budget. I thought for 2016 we were going to keep it in case they did come back and ask. I may be wrong, but I was wondering if every year we're just putting that aside somewhere so that when they ask for something, we collected this amount every year.
Madam Treasurer.
Your Worship. So essentially the list goes over to Wasaga Distribution. They have the right to control their own budget. We don't control it, and they provide the donations that we request.
Okay.
Last year the request was not to do anything for the 8,400 because we had met our pledge at that time.
All right, other questions or comments? Councillor Belanger.
Well, just one other question, Your Worship, is that also given that I'm assuming that they are expecting or okay with the traditional amount of grant money that benefits them tax-wise, that we could also as a council discuss whether or not that could be potential funding for a walk-in clinic if we were to get to that point in time through this fiscal year.
I mean, Your Worship, that would be a decision of council and the board at Hydro.
Again, you would ask that to be put on for future discussion at council. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll read the question. Moved by Councillor Stockwell and seconded by Councillor Smith, that Committee of the Whole of Council recommends to Council that it provide the following direction through Wasaga Distribution, Inc. Number 1, breaking down barriers, $5,000. Number 2, Georgian Triangle Housing Resource Center, $5,000. Number 3, Georgian Triangle Hospice, $5,000. Number 4, Simcoe Muskoka Dufferin Crime Stoppers of $1,500. And number 5, the YMCA Strong Kids Campaign of $5,000. Madam Clerk.
Your Worship, members of council, you've heard the question. When I call your name, please answer in favor or opposed. Councillor Belanger.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Beckles.
In favor?
Councillor Grant.
In favor?
Councillor Rico.
In favor.
Councillor Smith.
In favor.
Councillor Stockwell.
Favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor?
Carries unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to item 5H, Integrity Commissioner Report Follow-Up. Mr. CAO, I believe.
Can I?
Absolutely. Deputy Mayor Byfolchi.
Thank you. Just upon the advice of my solicitor, I will be declaring a conflict on this item due to outstanding issues, so I will remove myself from the table.
All right. Mr. CAO? Or, sorry, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Your Worship, is it appropriate that I can stay here to speak?
Absolutely. Yes.
So council will recall that they had received the Integrity Commissioner's report at a previous meeting, and based on some of the recommendations contained in the report, it appeared that there was some changes necessary for the council code of conduct. Just some clarification. So the report just highlights the areas in particular and the recommendation from staff. In the one section, it is to remove section 23.2 entirely. And the other is to amend it, the existing slightly in 23.7 to better reflect the appropriate process. The workplace policy for harassment and violence that the code currently speaks to is really a policy that's for staff only. So referencing council into that, it doesn't make sense. It isn't appropriate. So that's the recommendations. Now, in addition to that, and I apologize, today when I was reviewing the code of conduct, I noticed another section that was not included in the report from the Integrity Commissioner, and I did send a quick email off to council. I'm not sure if you saw that. And it related to another section, section 28.3, I believe, which references the discrimination or harassment and refers again to that complaint process through the town's violence and harassment and workplace policy. So the recommendation would be, if council's in agreement, to amend slightly the one that's included in the report to reference the removal or the deletion of section 28.3 from the code of conduct as well. And council does have on desk the current code of conduct, should that help when you're trying to determine the changes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Questions or comments from council? Councillor Smith?
Thank you. Just for clarification, I'm sorry, I have 1 year I have no hearing and got an infection in there. So anyway, 28.3, you're saying delete that whole section?
Yes.
Other questions or comments? Councillor Bray?
Yeah, I feel that this report is premature. The final statement on this report says that we need to seek a legal opinion about making sure that our code of conduct is compliant with Bill 132. So I'm just wondering why we're making a change to the code of conduct before we get that legal opinion. And then a quick review on my own of other municipality codes of conduct do not reflect this change. So Robert Swayze might have suggested it to us, but you look at the code of conduct for Barrie, you look at Simcoe County, you look at Ramera, none of those have made these changes that our integrity commissioner is recommending. So I don't want this council to rush through and make another change to our code of conduct that we're going to have to rescind when we realize, hey, it maybe wasn't such a good idea. So I'd like to refer this back so we can maybe get a report to see what municipalities have made this change before we make any changes to our code of conduct.
Madam Clerk, do you wish to speak to that?
Thank you, Your Worship. Other than just to reference the fact that the current policy that it's referring to is specific to staff and that process in relation to the fact that it would be, I believe, our director or our HR manager and another staff member that do the investigations for staff. And so if it's the direction of council, if they wish to direct me to wait or table it at this point, to wait for some further information from the solicitor's review and or to compile some information from what other municipalities have in their codes currently. But we would definitely need to make a change to the policy if that's the way that council was wanting to refer to.
Yeah, I would personally feel more comfortable if I knew other municipalities had done that. I didn't have time to look at 444, but the 3 or 4 that I did haven't made this change. I know our integrity commissioner would like us to, but I'm just not sure that we shouldn't go out and see what other municipalities are doing before we jump into it.
Thank you. Councillor Belanger?
I'm certainly okay to defer until we get a legal opinion, but in reading municipal law and the code of conduct, I understand that is very much up to each individual council, and that there would be many councils that have many different aspects to their code of conduct, and that changes are appropriate to be made and determined by us, the council of our particular municipality.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? I would, sorry.
Just if I could make a motion to refer, unless that's where you were talking.
Well, it was. I was just about to do that.
I apologize.
If you wanted to move that motion, Councillor Bray, I'd be happy to second that motion that we refer this back to staff for further investigation. I have no issue making changes to the code of conduct. As a matter of fact, I believe we do need to make some changes to our code of conduct, but we want to make sure that we do the right changes so we're not bringing this back again. So I would concur with that. So we can make an amendment to the motion, moved by Councillor Bray, to refer this back to staff. I would second that. Sorry, point of order. As chair, can I second that, Madam Clerk? Maybe I can't.
I would suggest that it probably, Your Worship, would be more appropriate if there was another member of council.
All right, so I would agree. Is there another member of council who would be willing to second that motion? Councillor Belanger? Thank you.
Your Worship, if I may, is it the process here that it's a formal motion to refer as opposed to deferring the matter?
I believe we've always done a formal motion, yes.
We would prepare one.
Need some time for that, madam.
Once I find my sheets.
Just a comment.
Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment. We're only reviewing in this motion that's forward. It's just that one section. I agree that we need a lot of other changes, but I don't know why we just couldn't today approve this one section if we're happy with it. And then we can deal with the other ones as we go.
Any other questions or comments?
So I think we need one second.
All right, so it was moved by Councillor Bray. Seconded by Councillor Belanger. That the recommendation contained in the report related to the Integrity Commissioner's report follow-up be referred back to staff for further review. Questions or comments? Madam Clerk?
Your worship, members of council, you've heard the question. When I call your name, please answer in favor or opposed. Councillor Belanger.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Byfolchi. Oh, sorry, I apologize. Councillor Bray.
In favor?
Councillor Ego.
Opposed?
Councillor Smith.
Opposed?
Councillor Stockwell.
Opposed.
Mayor Smith.
In favor?
The motion's defeated on a 3-3 tie.
I'll read the original motion then. It is moved by Councillor Smith and seconded by Councillor Belanger that Committee of the Whole recommends to Council that the Council Code of Conduct authorized by bylaw number 2016-07 be amended by deleting section 23.2 and further that section 23.7 be updated to reflect the following wording: harassment which occurs in the course of or is related to the performance of official duties by members is subject to the code and shall be investigated by the Integrity Commissioner. And further that section 23 be renumbered based on the changes above. And further that section 28.3 be deleted and the balance of items in that section be removed. Renumbered. That's all right. All right, questions or comments? Councillor Belanger?
Is it our intention to still seek a legal opinion, and then if there's something, a revision suggested, that it would come through council again?
Well, as this motion reads, there's no legal opinion in here. So when you pass this motion, as I understand it, this is what we're going to do. If someone wants to bring forth getting a legal opinion after, I would think that that's probably suitable, but kind of we'd be putting the cart before the horse. Do you want to speak to that, Madam Clerk?
If I may, Your Worship. It does reference in the report that it was, as you had indicated, a recommendation from the Integrity Commissioner. So staff will follow up internally with having it reviewed by a solicitor to ensure that we're in compliance with Bill 132. And if there's any additional changes that are necessary, we will bring them forward at that point.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bray?
Just in response to that, are there not limits to the number of time we can keep bringing a matter to the table to discuss? Like, I thought once we voted on it, we had a year before we could revisit it. And that's why I was worried that we were rushing to do something without a legal opinion, because do we not have a...
Mr. CAO will pull up the procedural bylaw.
Your Worship.
No problem.
It is a lengthy procedural bylaw, and a little different than the one I was used to.
So that if I may, there is a section in the procedural bylaw, Your Worship, dealing with revisiting a matter. It's on page 50 of 53, and it says that a motion to rescind or amend a matter may only be brought forward only once in the 12-month period from the date the matter was first decided, unless New information is brought forward that might have reasonably affected the debate or the decision, or a mistaken procedure can have shown to be occurred. But I think there was a limitation, and I'm just trying to find it here, with respect to an amendment to the procedural bylaw. As I understood it, the procedural bylaw was restricted from being amended once per calendar year. I don't know if the code of conduct is the same. I'm just looking into that right now.
Councillor Belanger?
Yes, Your Worship. I believe also that we had visited this earlier, and that currently, with this council, it would take a vote of 5 as opposed to a vote of 4 to carry that reconsideration, I believe.
Well, if it's brought forth to council for reconsideration or a committee for reconsideration, I would agree. My understanding is the procedural bylaw indicates that a request for reconsideration must be of the majority plus 1. So,
Right.
sorry, no, it must be 2/3 of council. So that is correct.
Yeah.
It is a majority vote. So, to clarify that, please, Mr. CAO?
Sorry, I just whispered to the mayor that it is in fact a majority vote as opposed to a 2/3 vote.
For reconsideration?
For reconsideration.
Okay. Anything?
I can't find the limitation in the procedural bylaw. I'd have to look it over.
For the code of conduct.
Well, just in terms of amendments to the procedural bylaw. It was my recollection that subject to confirmation, the procedural bylaw could only be amended. The code of conduct did not have that same restriction, but I'm only going through the procedural bylaw at this particular point, unless the clerk has a comment with respect to the code of conduct, with respect to a limitation of it, how often it can be amended.
Anything, Madam Clerk?
Well, Your Worship, thank you. I have the code in hand, so it's just a matter of reviewing it quickly to see if I can see anything in section that jumps out.
Okay, what we're going to do at this point, we're going to take a 10-minute break. It'll give you folks some time to look at that, as we've got a couple lengthy matters coming up, I'm sure. So we'll take a 10-minute break, and we'll reconvene, and hopefully we'll have those answers. you've confirmed a couple of things during the break. Can you speak to council on that?
Thank you, Your Worship, and again, I apologize, I didn't have that information at hand. Following a review of the Code of Conduct, section 37.2 on page 21, I guess, of 22, states that the Code of Conduct will be reviewed as required, but in any case no later than 4 years from the date of the most recent review. So with respect to the inquiry as to whether it can be reviewed multiple times during the course of the year or potentially changed, I believe so, that would be appropriate, it can be done. And just to provide some additional clarification, with respect to this item, so you will note that when you look at the content that's being removed, it, as I had said earlier, it refers to the workplace violence and harassment policy of the town, which relates specifically to staff. It has no component to deal with council. It's not referenced that way. So, for instance, in section 23.7, how we're trying to reword it, or what we're recommending be done based on the Integrity Commissioner's report, is that reference, in this case, an employee or a member of the public brings forward a harassment complaint against a member, the complaint procedure under the town's violence and harassment in the workplace policy will apply. Well, as I indicated, that policy is just specific to really staff members only. So by removing that section, the way it will read moving forward is that harassment which occurs in the course of or is related to the performance of official duties by members being those of council, is subject to this code, being the Code of Conduct, and shall be investigated by the Integrity Commissioner, which, as we all know, was the process that was followed in this current matter.
All right, questions? Councillor Bray?
I guess I'd just, again, like to say that when I review other municipalities' code of conduct, it does not give this power to the Integrity Commissioner. It keeps that power within the municipality. I think if staff is concerned about harassment, then they should probably go to the staff or the Human Rights Tribunal, I think, which is the other part of our own harassment policy. So again, I think as a council, we're rushing to make changes without proper advice. And we should be looking at the other 440 member municipalities in Ontario before we rush to make changes to our code of conduct. Yes, it was a very quick review, but I couldn't find any that have done what Mr. Swayze is suggesting. And I would just like to see some examples of that before we rush to make that change.
Councillor Belanger?
Yeah, I'd like to call the question, Your Honor. I think we're just being repetitive here, so.
All right. Heard that. It's moved by Councillor Smith and seconded by Councillor Belanger that Committee of the Whole recommends to Council that the Council Code of Conduct authorize a bylaw number 2016-07 as amended by deleting section 23.2, and further that section 23.7 be updated to reflect the following wording. Harassment which occurs in the course of or is related to the performance of official duties by members is subject to this code and shall be investigated by the Integrity Commissioner. And further that section 23 be renumbered based on the changes above. And further that section 28.3D be deleted and the balance of items in that section be renumbered. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of Council, you heard the question. When I call your name, please answer in favor or opposed. Councillor Belanger.
In favor?
Councillor Bray.
Opposed?
Councillor Eagle.
In favor.
Councillor Smith.
In favor.
Councillor Stockwell.
Favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
So the motion carries.
All right, moving on to item number 5I, Beachfront Properties Management Board. Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Worship. Members of Council, in your agenda package is a report dealing with a proposal to establish a Beachfront Properties Management Board. This item was first considered by Council back in September of 2016. Direction was provided to come back with a report dealing with the legislative framework for establishing such a board, basic terms of reference, how it would work. That was considered by Council in November, and direction was provided to move to the next step, which was to prepare detailed draft terms of reference and outline how this board would work. So in this report, basically, is included a detailed terms of reference. These terms of reference were developed based on examples that I found in looking at similar type of boards, commonly business improvement areas, but similar boards that were overseeing kind of the operation of a particular area. Also using the templates that have recently been developed for the High School Task Force and the Tourism and Event Advisory Committee. So the key aspects of the terms of reference are that this board would be delegated authority to oversee the operation of Beach Area 1 and 2, all the town properties there, including buildings, as well as if council approves an agreement with Ontario Parks, the beach at Beach Area 1 and 2, which would be subject to a separate agreement. The board would oversee the improvement, maintenance of the municipally owned buildings. The board would have responsibility delegated by council to negotiate and approve commercial leases for the stores, restaurants. They would consider and approve maintenance contracts. They would consider and approve events and recreation activities for the area. They would also identify and pursue events for the area that would benefit tourists and residents. They would oversee the management and maintenance of the portion of Beach Area 1 and 2 that is subject to an agreement if council approves an agreement with Ontario Parks for the beach area. They would oversee the maintenance of the municipal picnic area or parking area, which is the Beach Area 2 parking lot. Oversee the marketing of the area and oversee the delivery of tourism services. This board would have delegated authority through these terms of reference. They would have budget authority up to a maximum of $50,000. They would have to follow the purchasing bylaw that's been approved by council. The board chair or designate would have the authority to direct staff assigned to support the board in circumstances where decisions are required that go beyond the authority of staff. The board would be required to follow the requirements of the procedural bylaw, code of conduct, and other applicable town policies. It would operate under the purchasing policy and could not bind the corporation longer than 5 years. In my report, I talk a little bit about budget responsibility. As committee knows, the 2017 budget has been struck, and it's composed of various accounts aligned by departments. The creation of this board would have impact across multiple departments. So for 2017, staff would undertake a benchmarking exercise to use some science and best estimates in terms of creating a budget for this board, bring that forward to council as a guideline in terms of expenditures and revenues, and also track expenditures and revenues in 2017 and come up with a budget, a true budget for the operation of the board in 2018. The board would be required to report to council through the treasurer's quarterly report in terms of the financial performance of the beachfront area. It would be required to submit operating and capital budget, as I indicated, any financial processes that the board wish to undertake, they would do so in consultation with the treasurer, who would administer all aspects of leasing and purchasing actions. The board composition would be made up of 8 members, a non-voting chair, and the chair would only vote in the case of a tie with respect to any votes on the board. There would be 3 members of council appointed to the board. There would be 4 citizens of Wasaga Beach appointed to the board, and they would be appointed based on the skill sets that would help the board in terms of administering the delegated authority would have. We suggested that council look for somebody with retail experience, with property management experience, with restaurant experience, and other experience, so that the board can benefit from some of this expertise and some of the decisions that it will be making going forward. In addition, it is recommended that there be a member of the tenants. There is a strong tenants group down at the beachfront, and it's proposed that that group of tenants elect someone from their group to be the 8th member of the board. So that would make it 8 members. Support of the board would be provided through my office. General manager would be appointed to be the general manager of the Beachfront Property Management Board. We have a property manager that council's approved with respect to a new position, property manager, purchasing and fleet manager. That person would report dealing with the property management aspects to the board. A special events coordinator dealing with special events that occur down at Beach Area 1 and 2. And then financial support, marketing support, public works support, etc. from the various departments as the board requires. And we would track the time that these individuals spend so that from a budget standpoint that we have an idea in terms of going forward in 2018 how much should be allocated toward this operation. Now, as indicated, the 2017 budget has been approved, so all these salaries and wages are already in the budget. So it's a matter of reallocating the work to support this board. At this particular point, it's not clear if there will be additional costs with respect to the operation of the board. It's the intent to work within the existing funding allocations across the various departments. So, in summary then, creating a board of management under a clearly defined terms of reference will allow council to delegate the day-to-day oversight of this area to the board, composed of members of council and experienced business people. It's thought that by applying a business-like approach, council will ensure that the Wasaga Beach taxpayers receive the best value for their investment in these properties and initiatives. Thank you, Worship, and I'll take any questions that members of council may have.
Questions or comments? Councillor Stockwell?
Mr. Mayor, just so that it doesn't fall between the chairs, is that the last paragraph of page 3, the CAO commented on it, and it says, it now reads, the board will consist of 8 members, including a non-voting chair. If we could amend that to say the board will consist of 8 members, including a chair who will vote only in the case of a tie. So that it's on the record.
In case somebody was sick.
No.
Okay, my question was how would there be a tie if there was 7 members, but if someone was away?
We had a tie last week. Here.
Okay, thank you.
If somebody was sick.
Thank you, Councillor. Other questions or comments? Councillor Bray?
Yeah, not quite sure where to start. I do not support a management board. We bought the buildings. We should figure out how to manage them. It is our responsibility as the elected council of the town of Wasaga Beach. In order to be open and transparent, I believe we do need to keep this responsibility at this table where the people of Wasaga Beach can come to the meetings and hear what's happening. They can log on to YouTube and see what's happening. They can read in the minutes. My fear if it goes to a board, and I'm not sure if it's going to be a board like Wasaga Distribution, whether it's paid or unpaid, whether we will see the minutes, whether we will see them 3 months after the fact. But again, I don't think that we spent $14 million to hand it over to a bunch of volunteers to manage. I have further concerns when you look at the responsibilities of this volunteer board. We're asking them to take on a supervisory role for our staff. We're asking them to oversee improvements, beautifications, and maintenance of buildings we own. We're asking them to negotiate and approve leases where we still have questions at this table. We're not even going to see them anymore if this goes through. We're asking them to approve maintenance contracts. I think there was issues with the contracts we had in place last year. So hey, let's just tuck it away where no one sees it. We're now talking about approving events. We're asking them to oversee the management and maintenance of the beach. We're asking them to oversee marketing. So we are basically taking the role of 4 or 5 full-time positions within this organization, giving it to an unpaid board and saying, yep, you can manage our staff. Now some of them are union, they may or may not have a problem with that. But I think if we need a full-time person to handle this, if our existing staff can't handle it, well, the majority of this council has no problem hiring people in the past. Let's hire people. If we need people, let's not create a volunteer position and stack it with with 3 members of council, not the majority, and a bunch of volunteers from the community. I just don't think that in any way that is open and transparent, and we're all aware there's issues at this table, but sliding it off to a board on the side is highly inappropriate, and I cannot in any way support it, and I'm sure there's a ton of people in the community that feel like I do.
Councillor Belanger?
Yeah, I just feel that's a pretty bleak outlook. This is not a precedent that we're setting. These management boards exist within any communities, especially when you have a tourist or a special event kind of environment. 3 council members will serve on the board, so certainly there will be significant input from council. There will be reports back quarterly. I think this is going to make it a lot more efficient for both things to get done to enhance our beachfront, but also to make our council more efficient, because we get so many small little items that take up so much time when we have significant priorities ahead of us. And I see a much more optimistic and a much more beneficial outlook than Councillor Bray. So.
Other questions? Sorry, Deputy Mayor Byfolchi was next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All of my comments that follow are my opinion or belief and not directed at any particular staff member, council member, or member of the community, as we are only talking about in terms of reference at this point and not individuals. An elected body of council delegating its authority to 3 members of council and some currently unnamed residents for our entire beachfront concerns and alarms me, and should concern and alarm the residents of this community. I see loss of accountability and transparency with the creation of this board. As elected council members, we answer to our constituents. The unelected board does not. This board, being given the authority to make financial decisions on behalf of the residents' investment in the beachfront, is irresponsible. The fact that this unelected board will have the authority to bind the town for up to 5 years with no input from this council or the next is irresponsible. I have previously shared concerns about the procurement policy during this term of council. To pass this responsibility off to an unelected board is irresponsible. Okay, Sylvia. And leaves opportunity for speculation. This council has yet to create or come up with a business plan or any plan for the beachfront. What direction are we really providing this board on behalf of its stakeholders? Giving this unelected board negotiating power on behalf of the residents in this council is irresponsible. The fact that town staff will be required to take direction from an unelected chair and board is irresponsible, and again creates the same confusion that we just corrected in our code of conduct based on recommendations from KPMG. If the minutes are not shared like Wasaga distribution, or minimally written like other committees this term, the minutes will be useless to anyone wanting and expecting transparency or knowledge of what is really going on. I would like to be on record as highly opposed to this board being created, and what I believe to be another opportunity to silence members of council and the public who ask questions. Why do we need to replace the voice of 4 members at this council table with 4 or 5 unelected members of the community? We were elected by the residents to make these decisions. I see creation of this board as shirking our responsibility. If this is approved, I would suggest that the town auditors be in charge of advertising, interviewing, and selecting members for this committee with no input from council or staff. This will provide confidence to the residents and us around this table that appropriate members of the public with appropriate qualifications are sitting around the board table without any worry of conflicts. I would think that we would all want that. Thank you.
Question. Thank you. Councillor Ego? Sorry, Councillor Ego, did you say a question? Go ahead, Councillor.
He has a question as well.
Okay, Councillor Ego?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CAO. In other municipalities in Ontario, is it common in some of them to have a board of governors or a board of directors?
It's commonly referred to as business improvement areas, and there are boards that are struck. Typically, they're made up of individuals in that area that they're either owners of property or they're tenants within that area. They all contribute through a special levy to the management of that area, and there's typically 1 or 2 members of council that are on that board. It's not common across all municipalities, but there are municipalities, come to mind, the town of Collingwood, the city of Orillia, Those are two that I looked at. There's others, City of London, et cetera, that have these type of boards where they are asked to perform certain responsibilities for a particular area, very similar to what is being looked at here.
Excuse me, Mr.
Go ahead,
So
Councillor.
there is other communities in Ontario that have management boards, is that correct?
Not to this
extent.
Not to
but
this
there
extent.
there is management boards for the town or for areas in other municipalities.
In designated areas within municipalities, correct.
Okay.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Yes. The fact here is that saying that we don't have people in the community that aren't qualified, I think that's a real slam towards our residents. I think there's lots of people in this community that have a lot to offer. And I think if they were chosen properly, I think that they could be a big asset to the town. So I don't agree with the
Point of order.
thing.
Councillor Bray?
I think there's an inference here that we have said the community is not qualified. I have no doubt that there are very well-qualified members in the community.
The deputy mayor said that we should not have people come on this board.
Oh, I can read it back to you.
Could you read that, please?
Council, and I don't believe that's what the deputy mayor said, but we're not here to debate with each other on a personal level. We're here to discuss and debate the report. So let's stay to the report, please.
End of my talk.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor
No, I passed.
Stockwell? Right, Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment. I think going through the Main Street development with Boric, one of the next steps they suggested was looking at a management board and also looking at a board to oversee the development of that area. I take issue with being called irresponsible, and I think that we're doing the right thing. I think it's necessary. I think we spend way too much time going over small issues that shouldn't even come to this table. We're elected to represent our residents. Yes, so we have 3 councillors that will be on this board to represent those residents who elected them and be a voice for council. I have no qualms that this will run properly, and it will clear up our desks of a lot of trivia things that we really aren't concerned with.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Byfolchi and then
Thank you.
Councillor Bray.
Thank you. I would just like to clarify, the councillor implied that I called her irresponsible. That's not what I said.
Everybody.
No, that's not what I said. Again, I can pass this off to all of you through email if you need it.
Councillor Bray?
And again, I was surprised with this report coming forward. When we left the last one in November, we were going to get examples of management groups because there's still a lot of confusion about what a management group is, which was what we're being presented with, versus a BIA. In November, the CAO's report had great examples of BIAs. The main difference is the BIA is funded by the businesses that will benefit by that improvement area. This is something that's going to be funded by the municipality. And if we truly believe that we need management down there, then as a municipality, let's step up and hire people to do it. I don't think we should be passing our responsibility on to volunteers. And I guess the other thing that kind of came up, and I wasn't maybe as clear, I don't think quarterly reports are adequate when you have a 2-month business season. It's long done and gone before we even know they haven't paid their rent. And it happened last summer, and it's only going to get worse if we go to quarterly reporting.
Councillor Belanger?
Just to clarify, I believe the report said the general manager would be a staff member of the town.
Correct.
And in all fairness, our tourism industry has gotten to a point where a BIA is not a realistic option. The number and the sheer volume of tenants that are in the beachfront collectively, I don't think today has the wherewithal to do what we're suggesting needs to be done. But I would think at some point in the future, as we build our tourist industry, that may be a future consideration. But
Councillor Smith?
There's just one more comment, Your Worship. These, I believe, will be public meetings, and any member of council is welcome to go if it's an open meeting and observe. Any member of the public as well. So I don't
And
think
I'm going to give each member of council one more opportunity to speak to this. So if there's any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, anything further from you, Mr. CEO? All right, I'll read the question. Moved by Councillor Eagle, seconded by Councillor Belanger. The Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that it approve the creation of a beachfront property management board to manage the town-owned and managed properties at beach areas 1 and 2, and further that Council approve the terms of reference for the Beachfront Properties Management Board, delegating its authority as per the terms of reference to the board, and further that committee authorize the clerk to begin advertising for board members immediately. Councillor Bray and then Councillor Stockwell.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Stockwell.
I think you'll have to vote on the amendment first, the amendment changing the wording that I suggested.
With respect to the chair voting only on a tie, that's correct. Well, this is specific to the board members, so should we do, so you, Councillor Stockwell, you will need to move that motion for an
I'll
amendment.
do that, Mr. Mayor.
Someone to second that? All right, clerk? Sorry, did you have a question, Councillor Bray?
I did, yeah, two things. Just a comment that we haven't received the profit and loss for last year, so the whole quarterly report really does scare me. I think these terms of reference really need to be reworked. But the other thing is the deputy mayor had suggested that the selection committee be made through Collins Barrow, and I thought that would maybe add a little bit of confidence to some people out in the community that maybe have concerns about this, because I've had huge pushback on this. Perhaps you haven't. I have. This is scaring people.
Do you wish to make a motion to that, Councillor?
I would like to make a motion to
We have another motion here.
because I think you're advertising for board members immediately.
One second, Councillor, please.
Under board composition. Oh, yeah, number one.
Okay, Councillor, go ahead.
So I guess by involving Collins and Barrow, my hope is that they would review these terms of reference before we went out and we got these people, because I just think there's huge legal, there's huge financial. We've just done this KPMG report that came up with all kinds of things about how we manage staff, and now we're just gonna hand that responsibility off to some volunteers. So I think that we probably should get a little bit, we should have a review of these terms of reference, and if they're part of the selection committee, then maybe that could be part of the services that we contract from our accountants.
So it sounds to me it's a little more in depth then, so you're going to have to work with the clerk here to create your motion.
I mean, this scares me on a very huge scale. I think it should concern other people. It certainly does concern members of the community. So I would just like to know that as a council, we're protected and that we have had legal advice with these terms of reference. We have had financial advice through our auditors, through our accounting firm.
This is the one with the change of wording?
Yes, this is from the chair, recording chair.
Okay, right.
So we'll wait for you to complete the second one as well.
So yes, Your Worship, I apologize for concentrating on that one.
No problem.
So the other one, if I could have a reminder of
So-
what happens.
So I'd like the terms, I would like the recruitment. So I believe we're approving terms of reference, but I would like those terms of reference to be reviewed by our legal and our financial or auditing team. What would you call them?
Oh, you mentioned Collins Barrow.
Collins Barrow, the town auditors.
Either the town's auditor, I apologize, or legal
And legal counsel.
Yes.
There was a section.
And then I'll read that one. And then
Yeah,
Line B.
next step. Then we can talk about this for months. Months.
George never got access to yours.
His name is CND. Yes, he does.
I know, but we're not revenue generating.
Well, yeah, we've taken on a project that's public interest, and we need to make sure that it's managed properly.
And you think volunteer work and do that.
If they're qualified. It's like hydro, when people were appointed from the community for hydro.
And how does that work for us?
Well, we're doing it.
Now, my question, yes, what's missing something, right? Because this needs to
I just don't want the town to be involved.
Right, but we're saying that.
But these terms of reference are just, I think there's things in there that you will cause some questions with the municipal.
Okay, so we're doing this in the private.
Yes.
Down the street for a second minute. I have a question of the CAO before that.
Well, yes, but I'm just not there.
Okay, no, that's
Okay, so yes, so you. No, that's okay. Thank you. Oh my goodness, good luck on this.
you're gonna read it.
I will, thank you. Yeah, just want to check that, make sure it's okay. And if you don't mind me. Okay, that it's really different. It's just
This is a different form.
Yes.
Do you know what you want to re-sign it?
When you're in need, yeah.
What have you been doing for the last 2 hours? Where did I?
I will do that.
You might go to a meeting, you can put it up, and if you go to a meeting, you get
And then back to me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, back to order here, please. Moved by Councillor Stockwell, seconded by Councillor Belanger, this is the amendment to the original motion that Section 1 under the board composition related to the terms of reference be amended by using "who will vote only in the case of a tie" at the end of the sentence. Questions or comments? Did you wish to speak to this, Councillor?
No, second one.
All right, seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Your worship, members of council, you've heard the question. When I call your name, please answer yes or no. Councillor Belanger.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Byfolchi.
In favor?
Councillor Bray.
In favor?
Councillor Ego.
In favor?
Councillor Smith.
In favor?
Councillor Stockwell.
Favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, I'm going to let you read that next one.
Yes, thank you, your worship. The next amendment relates to the following: that the terms of reference related to the Beach Area 1 Management Board be reviewed by the town's auditor and legal counsel, and further, that the town's auditor be in charge of advertising for membership, interviewing, and selecting members for this committee with no input from council and staff. It was moved, your worship, by Councillor Bray and seconded by the deputy mayor.
All right, questions or comments? Councillor Stockwell?
A question to the CAO, through you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. CAO, when did this report of yours go public?
Thank you. To you, Your Worship, it would have been public as of 9 o'clock yesterday morning.
9 o'clock yesterday morning. Thank you. Speak, please.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Mr. Mayor, I really find the resolution offensive. You know, we're led to believe that 24 hours hasn't passed that this report would become public, and all of a sudden the councillor has many, many calls. People are very upset, and the whole town is upset about what's going on here.
Point of
I
order.
really find that offensive.
Am I being called a liar?
The question is directed to Councillor Stockwell, I'm assuming. The question from Councillor Bray is if she's being called a liar,
Have
Councillor.
I used that word, Mr. Mayor?
No, you have not.
Thank you, that's my answer.
Carry on,
So I
Councillor.
really find it offensive that this, for the last 2 years, this council has been working day to day very hard with staff, and we've been able to hire staff, pay them fairly large salaries, and nobody suggested we put that hiring process out to somebody because we weren't competent enough to do it. And we've had control of the operation of this municipality, and when it comes to the beach, all you have to do is look at the voting record. All you have to do is look at the voting record over 2 years from the time we voted to buy the properties to the time we voted to work with the tenants down there. And the voting record is quite clear as to how the councillor feels about the beach. And to come out and say that we aren't competent enough to search out citizens of this community that can be appointed to serve on a board, I really find that offensive. And I think, Mr. Mayor, that this is a move in the right direction. This is a move. We've had 2 years of attempting to turn the beach operation into a profitable operation, and we've had nothing. Most votes go through on a 5-2. Most votes, and I find that there's no question about the fact that people have the right on this council to vote aye or nay. But after a while, the voting goes time and time and time again. It reaches the point of obstructionism. And I really am concerned about this. That because the message will be taken out by the media here today of this council's been accused of not having the competence to appoint a board. There are many, many people out there very upset over this report. I'd venture to say probably haven't seen it, haven't read it. And I just, it reaches the point that I could go on a long time in pointing out the problems we've had in dealing with the beach on this council. And there is a pattern. And anybody that misses that pattern doesn't have an open mind on the subject. So, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest let's vote on it, let's deal with it. If the motion carries, fine, that's the way we'll go. But if the motion doesn't carry, then let's get on with doing the business of the people. And let's take the beach, which is a very important cog in the economy of this municipality, a very important cog, and move it forward. And I would like to think we could move it forward unanimously, but that's not going to happen. It hasn't happened in 2 years, and I really don't think it's going to happen in the next 2 years.
Deputy Mayor Byfolchi?
Thank you. I'd just like to point out that this board that is being created is not like our other advisory boards that advise council. This is a board with a lot of power. I'd also like to, I actually am happy to have the opportunity to address this whole issue of who's obstructing things happening. You're right, it is a vote of 5-2. How 2 members of council are stopping anything from happening in this community, we're not stopping anything. You have the majority. Every vote, you can win it. We're not obstructing anything.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Ladies and gentlemen, please. This is not a popularity contest here, thank you.
I have a question. Did I say you were stopping the program? I said you were trying to stop the program. And I know what the vote is, and I think anybody in this room knows what the vote's gonna be. And next week, the same thing will come up, and everybody will know what the vote's gonna be.
It's called democracy.
I mean, you two are the only one in step.
Okay,
The rest of us are out of step.
Counselor, we're going to stop that there. We're going to move on now.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'm not finished.
Well, and I understand that, Council, but, or
I mean,
Councilor,
if you're shutting me down, I'll be quiet.
I'm shutting you down.
I'll be quiet.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, no other comments or questions? Madam Clerk, did you read your... You haven't read it yet, no.
It was, Your Worship, the question was read, correct?
No, the question was not read.
Okay, okay. So the question is that the terms of reference related to the Beach Area 1 Management Board be reviewed by the town's auditor and legal counsel, and further that the town's auditor be in charge of advertising for membership, interviewing, and selecting members for this committee with no input from council and staff.
Yep, can I call the vote, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, members of council, you've heard the question. When I call your name, please answer in favor or opposed. Councillor Boulanger.
Opposed?
Deputy Mayor Byfolchi. In favor. Councillor Bray.
In favor?
Councillor Ego.
Opposed.
Councillor Smith.
Opposed?
Councillor Stockwell.
Opposed.
Mayor Smith.
Opposed.
So the motion is defeated 5-2.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving forward with item number B, Beachfront Property Management Board, moved by Councillor Ego and seconded by Councillor Boulanger, that Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that approve the creation of a Beachfront Properties Management Board to manage the town-owned and managed properties at beach areas 1 and 2, and further that Council approve the terms of reference for the Beachfront Properties Management Board delegating its authority as per the terms of reference to the board. And further that committee authorize the clerk to begin advertising for board members immediately as amended. Madam Clerk, please call the question.
Your Worship, if I may add, based on the amendment that was passed by council, the addition of who will vote only in the case of a tie to the end of the sentence under section 1, board composition. That was what was agreed to by council earlier, just
Thank
to
you.
amend this main motion.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Your Worship, members of council, you've heard the question. When I call your name, please answer in favor or opposed. Councillor Boulanger.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Byfolchi.
Opposed?
Councillor Bray.
Opposed?
Councillor Ego.
In favor.
Councillor Smith.
In favor?
Councillor Stockwell.
Favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
The motion carries 5-2.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 5I, license agreement, the Ontario Parks Delegation of Authority. Is that you, Mr. CAO?
Yes, thank you. Okay, sir. For many years, the municipality's been hosting or partaking in special events that have occurred at Beach Area 1, particularly on the beach, whether it be beach volleyball or beach soccer or other activities. Individuals that have been interested in partaking in those activities on the beach had to approach the municipality for approval, and then they also had to go to Ontario Parks for approval. So back in 2013, there was a staff initiative to see if the minister could delegate the approval authority for events to the municipality. So we were interested in basically a one-stop shop. We would still deal with the ministry's requirements with respect to events, and instead of an individual having to go to the municipality and then to Ontario Parks, just delegate us the authority. And a letter was written to Ontario Parks in early 2014, and there was a draft agreement that was prepared, and it was done along the lines, council members may recall that Springwater Provincial Park, there was some controversy with respect to the shutting down of that park, and then the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry entered into an agreement, I believe with a First Nation group, to operate the park. So that was kind of the impetus to ask for this delegated approval authority. So that sat for a while, and municipal delegations to the minister would inquire about that from time to time, whether at AMO or at the Rural Ontario Municipal Conference. And lo and behold, very recently, the minister responded to say that if you want special events, yes, you can have special events, but you got to take the whole thing, and you basically have to manage the whole area. And I shouldn't just back up for just a second, because back in 2015 there was some interest in terms of activating the beach, in terms of doing some active programming on the beach tied in with the Main Street Market, and there was some further inquiries made with respect to for example, having lifeguards there, having building lifeguard stands, creating a bonfire pit, et cetera, et cetera. So that kind of built on the special events request. So the minister came back and said, as I indicated, if you want to do this, you have to take responsibility for the whole thing. And so about a year ago or so, staff met with the Ontario Parks folks, and we received a draft agreement from Ontario Parks with respect to how this delegation of authority would work to the municipality. And the simple way to put it is to consider this as a park within a park. So basically the town would operate a municipal park within the provincial park. And we provided some feedback on the initial draft. We received a second draft of the agreement just at the end of, it was at beginning of 2017. And what you have before you in your package today is the second draft of this proposed agreement to delegate the authority to the municipality to manage Beach Area 1 and 2, essentially from the Spruce Street parking lot to the east where the fence is, where the piping plover area, all the way to the extension of the 6th Street road allowance. That beach plus the associated water in front of the beach. And that would be, under this agreement, delegated to the municipality. So what does that mean? Well, what does that mean is that we could deal with events down there with respect to one-stop shopping. We would take on responsibility for the maintenance, litter pickup, that kind of thing. The ministry would still retain their responsibility to rake the beach. Essentially, we could operate the beach as what we would do with respect to a normal park. You know, if there was activities, volleyball, bocce, any kind of activity, any kind of recreation activity, we could organize it on the beach. Now, in the agreement, there's limitations, and there's, you know, we still have to go to the ministry for approvals and whatnot. But I felt that it was appropriate. We had talked about this at the staff level. We had talked about it during budget, but members of council hadn't seen it. And I felt it important, even though this is the second draft, that it be tabled so that members of council would have the opportunity to go through it. As I indicated, just in, I guess about the third week of January, we did have a meeting with Ontario Parks staff, and we've gone through the second draft. Unfortunately, the third draft wasn't available for review today, but I anticipate getting that within the next week or so. And I'm happy to circulate the next draft to members of council. But today, the intent is just to table it. You get an idea of the flavor of the agreement, what the town's obligations are under the agreement. There's still a lot of work to do. because there are implications from a resourcing standpoint, because we are taking on responsibilities that Ontario Parks currently does with respect to the beach. Litter pickup, maintenance of the washrooms at Beach Area 2 and the ones at Gianetto, the well house there. So there are costs, but council has budgeted $180,000 in the 2017 budget for these type of things. So there's still work to be done, and in the report I make the commitment when this comes back to council, that I'll have a basic operational plan for council to consider as part of the agreement. So the council has an idea in terms of how is this actually going to be implemented, in terms of the things I've mentioned, some of the enforcement requirements that the province requires with respect to the Alcohol Liquor License Act and whatnot. There are enforcement requirements. So my commitment is to, when we come back with the next draft, is to also have an operational plan. Staff have been working on it at a very high level. There have been discussions internally. The biggest impact is on municipal law enforcement in terms of dealing with that component. So our senior municipal law enforcement officer has been working with Ontario Park staff in terms of their staffing model and the training required, et cetera, et cetera. But when this comes back, the intent is to bring that information back. So today it's just a table, answer any questions that members of council may have, and I'm available also offline to answer any questions. It's a rather lengthy document, I appreciate that. So I'm happy to answer any questions either today or after. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. To the CAO, where I'm confused is the security and enforcement. If we are providing the employees, and then they have to wear these uniforms and everything, so what's the difference between our law enforcement, our law enforcement people going to be wearing law enforcement jackets one day and a park official the other day, or how are they classified, the staff that will be looking after Beach Area 1 and 2?
Thank you. So it's an excellent question, because what we approach this, you approach this from the perspective of the visitor to the beach. So we wanted to ensure that the visitor, if they have an issue, they can quickly identify someone that they can go to. And although I've described a particular area, it was felt that it was important that our staff look very similar to Parks staff in terms of the way they appear, so that there was no confusion for the members of the public. So one day they were at Beach Area 5, and the next day they came to Beach Area 1. They could see somebody in a khaki, green, or beige outfit, and there would be an identifier to identify them as a municipal employee. But other than that, if they had to look for somebody, it would be identical. The training requirement is a little bit of a heightened level of training. The Provincial Park has 2 levels of staff. There's a park warden, which has a heightened level of training to our municipal law enforcement officers. And then there are water safety staff. And water safety staff have less training, but they're there just to kind of monitor if there's a lost child or whatnot. They're there to assist. So from our standpoint, some of our municipal law enforcement officers will have to have that enhanced training that will elevate them to the same level as a park warden in terms of being able to enforce certain provisions. And then we'll use other staff that are similar to the water safety staff as kind of the eyes and ears to assist dealing with the issues that come up.
Okay, I still am, I guess because I'm looking at it from a town perspective. So they will work out of here, they will be paid under the bylaw budget, but they won't be, I guess what I'm concerned about is the uniform and insurance and all of that. Are they park people, or are they town people, or, there's those issues to work out.
Mr. CAO?
Yeah, they will be town staff. They will not only be responsible for the beach, but we're looking at, our senior municipal law enforcement officers looking at the beach as an area, because there's Beach Area 1, 2, there's some parking lots in between or in behind, and there are enforcement requirements in that whole area. So in one of the staffing options that I've looked at is basically designating that as an area and having particular staff assigned to that area. So they will be identified through their apparel as being associated with the municipality, but they will also, when they're on the beach, a visitor should be able to see them pretty readily, like they see the park wardens now down there. They're very apparent if you look for them.
riding in between people on the way.
Other members of council, questions or comments? Councillor Bray?
Just a comment, with the next draft, would it be possible to put a tentative budget to some of these, like the litter pickup, the training of the staff, the number of staff, just so that we know that 180 will cover it, or no, it's going to be 350, and we just have a better feel for what we're getting into?
Thank you, Worship. That's the intent, is to provide that operational plan and cost it out so the members of council have an idea in terms of what it's going to cost.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll read the question. Moved by Councillor Stockwell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Byfolchi, that committee of the whole table the draft agreement with Ontario Parks pertaining to the delegation of authority to beach areas 1 and 2 for 3 weeks to allow members of council and staff to review and comment on the proposed agreement. Madam Clerk?
Your worship, members of council, you've heard the question. When I call your name, please answer in favor or opposed. Councillor Boulanger.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Byfolchi.
In favor?
Councillor Gray.
In favor?
Councillor Ego.
In favor?
Councillor Smith.
In favor?
Councillor Stockwell.
Favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to item 5K, future of the Dardanella Beachfront licensed establishment. And I believe this is you as well, Mr. CAO.
Thank you. I believe it was Councillor Smith who had asked that this be brought forward to a future agenda so that members of council could discuss the future of the Dardanella. So what I've done is I've prepared a brief report just outlining 3 options for members of council for discussion, and the recommendation is that committee provide direction to staff in terms of how you would like to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Byfolchi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Due to the current situation the town has found itself in as a result of past decisions on RFPs with this property, I support still going through the RFP process, providing there is an outside party with no vested interest hired, such as the town's auditors, to advertise, accept, and review all RFPs, submissions, and providing no involvement of staff or council members in the entire process. I would expect there would be a fee. However, I think it would be well worth it to ensure public confidence in the process, transparency, and fairness to all, and to avoid any conflicts of interest. I do have 2 questions for the CAO. Has there been any interest, discussion, or tours of the DARD with any potential operators since the last failed RFP? And if you don't know that, maybe other members of council or staff could answer it. As well as has consideration or opinion been sought regarding a pending lawsuit that would include this property and the effects of leasing or going to an RFP at this point?
Thank you, Worship. Through you, I'm not aware, in answer to your first question about people being through. The decision of council was last June. I know there have been people through the building, but I can't recall with respect to whether they're there for interest sake or not, so I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, before we move on to the next one, can I ask if any members of council have taken anyone through? No?
I am not.
Okay. All right.
And the second one, the answer through your worship is no, I have not sought a legal opinion with respect to the implication. I need some direction from council in terms of how they wish to proceed. If that was something that they wanted to pursue something other than leave it vacant, certainly I would seek a legal opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bray?
Yeah, I think it's a shame to leave it vacant. I think the only way to probably move forward fairly would be an RFP, pending the result of your investigations. I think the market dictates, and I don't think we can create a protectionist environment and just say, hey, we want this or this or this. I think a business needs to evaluate if it makes sense for them to be there, and they all need to be considered fairly, not any one particular segment or market, and I don't think we can limit who applies.
Other questions or comments? Councillor Smith?
Just a comment, because I brought this forward, and what is not here is whether or not it was going to be leased but demolished as well. That needs to be part of the consideration. And I think we need to get more advice on that. And as far as renting it out, my concern is that we don't do any background checks on these people that are renting and are put in RFPs, because we don't know if they've had financial issues or they have other lawsuits and liens against them, unless Andrew's not here, unless someone can answer that question. Do we do background checks on the tenants that we rent to?
CAO?
I can speak to that. We do not do background checks.
And I do take issue with Councillor's comment about renting it. I think we have the right to decide who's the better person to rent the place. I think we've been told at Blue Mountain, they were cherry-picked, those people. Nothing wrong with that. And I think, we shouldn't just go to the lowest bidder, especially with the issues that we have. I think we need to do some deeper background checking on whoever's going to lease this.
I think you mean to the highest bidder, Councillor, not the lowest bidder?
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Belanger?
Yeah, just a question to our COO, Mayor, generally are RFPs handled by an independent firm, or are they generally handled by municipalities, or maybe you're not aware?
Well, if I may, Your Worship, there's different types of RFPs, but the majority of the RFPs are handled by staff. Some of the technical public works tenders are handed over to our consulting engineers if we've engaged a consulting engineer on a particular project, and they're evaluated through that process, and then a recommendation comes back to staff. But those are very specific on those type of projects where the consulting engineer is kind of the project manager for that particular project.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I could speak.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Mr. Mayor, we should really hearken back to what happened in June of last year. We had the guard before us, and we decided to go for an RFP. 3 companies responded. The RFPs were referred to a staff committee. The CAO will remember that. And I think 2 of them, they were scored, and 2 of them came within a point of each other. It came to council, and I think the one who seemed to gather the most support of council was a company who offered to take it on with a 5-year contract and a 5 and 5, the option to go for another 5. And I think over a period of 6 years, if my memory serves me, there was something like $750,000 coming to the municipality. Now at the time, we only had, we were dealing short of a member. That was before Councillor was appointed to council. So there was 6 members of council. My memory tells me that it went to a vote, and it was lost on a tie vote. 3 people supported the rec staff recommendation, and 3 people didn't. And it was lost on a tie, and it's set empty since June of last year. To bring it forward now and go for another RFP, we'll put probably the same bidders may respond, may not respond, but the bar is pretty high at $750,000 over 6 years. And I don't know if anybody is going to respond saying, that's out of my league. And I don't know what you're going to get in the way of responses. And I don't know if council will change its mind. It hasn't been a year. Change its mind to deal with an RFP in a fair and balanced manner. I think that probably the best thing to do is to, I don't want to see them empty. I think an RFP would be, the bar is too high for RFPs set for this building. And I think the only thing that might get it going is to put a for rent sign on the door and see if you get any responses. It's not going to cost them to come and talk to us, staff. So they'll come forward and they'll show their interest. And we may or may not get somebody that makes sense to rent. I think we're getting dangerously close to that point where, for reasons of our own, that it's not going to be rented. And then the next thing to do is, do you leave it to decay, or do you take it down? And the last thing I would want to see is taking it down. I've said that before in this council. So I think if the choice is there to leave as is, go for an RFP, or put a for rent sign on, I would be supporting a rent sign. And that would be the first step to see if there's any interest up there.
Mr. CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment, and I'm not going to dispute the figures that the councillor mentions because I don't have the information in front of me, but the last RFP process included not only the bar portion, but the rear portion and the rehabilitation of the rear portion. Council, this would be the, our council has been out 4 times, and 2 of the 4 included the rehabilitation of the back, and the first 2 was just the operation of the front bar. In this report, what I'm suggesting is just if council goes out to just deal with the front part, just the bar part. As council learned through the last process, the figures that are being proposed in terms of rehabilitation are quite significant. And I can say from just dealing with the building over the last couple of years is that we're holding it together. So it's there, it's an old building, and you know, I don't want to judge what a business person may want to do, but it's structurally, it can go for a few more years, but we're what's the term I'm looking for?
Duct tape?
Duct tape.
We're biding our time. So I think from the standpoint in terms of dealing with the front part, I think that that's certainly usable. It's with minimal investment. I think I've outlined in the report some of the investments, but I would not recommend to council that if it does go either to lease or to the RFP process, that the rear portion be included in that.
Councillor Stockwell?
I'd just like to say I have no quarrel with it. I think that's a good idea.
Councillor Belanger and then Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to Bill's comment, as I was not on council during this time frame, but my understanding was that there were some policy related to the RFP. So in other words, they didn't want the same operator to control all the bars. So if you put out a rent sign, you forego some of those kinds of controls. Now, so I would say that that has to be a point of discussion as to what is the current council looking for as far as who would come and suggest they would want to rent it, and whether or not we still want you know, an operator to have multiple bars. And I've heard a little bit of the history that some bars opened and some didn't, depending on how busy we were. But I don't understand. I haven't read all that history, but I think it has to be taken into consideration in what you're going to do now.
Councillor Bray.
Yeah, in either the RFP or the rent option, would the town consider putting in the kitchen equipment like we did with COPA? So that they would then be able to open? Or are we expecting a lease or a renter to put in or to bring the equipment up to speed? Because I think that'll differentiate who would be or who could afford to set up.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think if the town were to set it up so that it was a fairly easy move-in, it would be an easy building to rent.
Before you go forward, Mr. CEO, I think we need to clarify, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. The town, I don't believe, put any kitchen in any building, did we?
The fire suppression system at the COPA, we had dismantled it because we did some roof repairs. And so we, as the landlord, we dismantled, we took it out, we replaced that, the fire suppression equipment.
That we took out?
Yeah, but the grill and the other equipment that was brought in was brought in by the tenant.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. CEO, did you wish to?
It's, to be clear, I think the equipment can be used. Certainly, it would require thorough cleaning. And I am not a technical person in terms of the burners and all of that, but the advice I've been given is that anybody who was thinking of a longer-term opposition or a proposal would consider replacing certain pieces of the equipment. I think the refrigeration equipment is sound. It's the grill, I think the dishwasher. I think those are nearing the end of their life expectancy.
Councillor Smith?
Thank you. Are we, today, are you expecting us to pick one of your options to go for? Is that what the
Looking for
expectation is?
direction, yes, Councillor.
So, for my opinion, I like option 3, but I want to make sure that we have a fixed rate, so that, like it says, from 20 to 50. Well, if we're going to go to option 3, then we need to be clear as to what we want for rent. It not, I mean, be negotiable, but if we're looking at 50,000 a year, it's different than 20,000 a year. So we have to come to terms with what we're expecting of that building.
Other questions or comments? Councillor Belanger?
Well, just again, you know, just putting it up for lease, I think, do you also want to have guidelines as to who you want to lease to, or what you want to lease to, or is it? I just, my understanding that came into play on the original vote, so I'm just asking the question.
Any other comments before I'll make some comments to that as well, Councillor? Councillor Bray?
Yeah, just my comment that I really think we shouldn't be dictating the market. The market, if there's a market out there, they will identify and they will put forward their proposal.
Councillor?
Just to respond, that I think that we are definitely have talked at length about ensuring the beach becomes a very family-oriented type place. So obviously, you know, that can be a consideration when you're just putting it up for lease. So.
All right, any other comments? I'll make a few. I guess part of the problem as I see it, and I've looked at this and I've thought about it a lot, believe me, and that is that, you know, we've gone out to RFPs in the past and it's simply to be operated as a bar. And I agree with Councillor Bray. I think the market will dictate whether another bar owner wants to be there or someone who sells widgets wants to be there. At the end of the day, we have this vacant space that the taxpayer is getting no money for because it's vacant. I like option 3 because of that, because we put a lease rate out there that we think is fair. That's the rate. And someone will come along, hopefully, whether they be a bar operator, whether they just be a restaurant, family-oriented restaurant with no bar, whether they sell, I don't know, motorboats, who knows, and looks at this property and says, you know what, this is a space I want to be in. Or perhaps 2 people come together and say, you know, we'd like to split it in half and share it. Quite frankly, I don't care what business is in there unless it's something that's not desirable, but my desire is to get the space leased and to get some dollars out of that to go back into the town's coffers and help pay for these properties. I think if we go to an RFP, we probably need to be more specific to that. I say we, just as we've done with all other buildings but the bars, that we put it out there that it's for lease and let the market dictate what they want to do there. And it may be clothing, who knows? But the fact that it's been a bar in the past, that history is there, and I can appreciate that. And you know, I like many others have been here a long time and hate to see the Della closed. At the end of the day, the building's in rough shape, and I think if we're going to, the other thing, we've always asked people in the past, for the most part, to consider putting money into the back end of this building. Well, that's just not financially feasible, especially with an escape clause that if I'm going to say when a developer comes along, is going to, you know, possibly take it down or do whatever else that developer sees fit. So I like option 3. I couldn't agree more with Councillor Bray that the market will dictate who's going to want to be there, and put the rate up there and see what we get. And we save a lot of time through the process of going to RFP, because that takes us closer and closer to summer, and I think anyone who's going to want this space is going to want as much time as possible to get in there, to clean equipment, to fix equipment, to remove equipment, to add equipment, whatever it may be, and I think we need to give them as much time as we can. So that's my thoughts and opinion. Councillor Bray?
So yeah, my only thought would be if we could have a due date for you know, expression of interest. So like the real estate bidding, if you want to be in the DAR this summer, you have to this date, and then maybe we can evaluate them at that point.
And I would agree with that, and I would just add that if we don't get someone by the due date, the sign stays up and we hope for the best, but I have no issue with that either, Councillor Bray. Right, one more comment, Councillor Belanger?
Well, again, just in very general terms, I just believe that we should believe that whoever leases it somewhat complements what we're trying to accomplish on the beachfront. And believe me, there are some things that would not be very complimentary that could come forward. So I think in general terms, there has to be some kind of qualifier.
And you're right, Councillor, but the ball at the end of the day is in Councillor's court. And if, I'm just going to throw it out there, let's say someone come by and wanted to open a strip joint. I'm confident, very confident, this council's not going to let that happen. It's not complimentary. At some point, you know, I might suggest that, you know, I don't know, someone might want to suggest that perhaps staff give this a little more thought, bring it back to us with some more other options and more options in the near future so we can consider it to move the ball forward.
No.
All right, Councillor Bray?
So it's just one thought with the due date is if there are no bids, nobody wants to rent it. If that date is sooner rather than later, we can say, okay, maybe the town should open that as a visitor center this year. Maybe, you know, because leaving it sitting there empty with worn out, tired signs is sad. So if soon enough we know that it's not, there is no interest, the market doesn't want it, then yeah, maybe that's where we put our visitor center if we're looking to have one this year.
Makes total sense to me. All right, George, are you clear on some direction there or clear as mud?
Worship, just, so I just want a clarification with respect to the businesses that could go in there. So basically, as I understand it, council's leaving it wide open, so if anybody wants to come in.
Let the market dictate that. Of course, within reason. We don't need any strip joints in Wasaga Beach. But I'll leave that up to you, Mr. CAO.
Okay. I think I have direction that I can work on something. Certainly from my perspective, given the history of the establishment and the RFP processes, I'd like to consult with the town solicitor to ensure that the council is not proceeding in a fashion that could put itself in jeopardy. And also want to talk or look at how to structure the lease offer in terms of the advertisement, so that it's clear to people who are potentially thinking about putting in an offer how they go about doing that. So I need to give that some further thought.
Deputy Mayor Byfolchi, then Councillor Stockwell.
Thank you. I would just ask that the recommendation itself doesn't actually say which option, and I guess I think it should, because right now it just kind of leaves it open.
I would agree. So we'll amend this to say option 3. Councillor Stockwell?
Yeah, I have no quarrel with what the CAO is saying. I would like to set a date to bring it back, because time is of the essence. I think we all agree with that.
Which is exactly what Councillor Bray said, so we need to decide on a date. Mr. CAO, something you think is reasonable?
It would just be the next available meeting, so it could be coordinated committee of the whole, whatever.
That's fine.
The next opportunity.
Madam Clerk. I'll read the question. Moved by Councillor Bray, seconded by Councillor Smith. The Committee of the Whole provide direction to the staff on the future of the Dardanella Beachfront licensed establishment being option 3 as outlined in the related staff report, and further that notwithstanding the direction that is provided, that the focus of the future of the Dardanella on the front, the usable portion of the establishment, as well as maintaining the rear portion in a stable manner. Questions or comments? Madam Clerk?
Your worship, members of council, you've heard the question. When I call your name, please answer yes or no. Councillor Boulanger.
In favor?
Yes. In favor or opposed? Sorry. Deputy Mayor Byfolchi. Opposed? Councillor Bray. In favor? Councillor Yule.
In favor.
Councillor Smith.
In favor.
Councillor Stockwell.
In favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
The motion carries 6-1.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to item number 5I, and this is for discussion only. There is no report. Council discussion, Provincial Park proposed secondary plan for discussion only. So we're bringing this back from our general government, I believe it was, discussions last week with respect to some direction and comments from council and staff on the proposed beachfront management secondary plan. And I want to be clear that the secondary plan is basically, or not basically, it is a maintenance plan with regards to how the MNRF is going to move forward to maintain the beachfront within the confines of the town of Wasaga Beach. So we're bringing this back for discussion. I think it's important that this council have discussion and make comment through the CAO, so that a report can be prepared to send to the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, so as that our voice is heard loud and clear by the ministry as to how we feel the beachfront should be maintained. With that, I'm going to let the CAO speak, and then I'll go to you, Deputy Mayor Fulci. Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry for that. Just from a procedural standpoint, the General Government section of Coordinating Committee did deal with the staff report, and that vote lost on a vote of three in favor, 3 against, and a tie vote. There was some interest by members of council that they felt that there needed to be an opportunity for members of council to provide some comments on the report. The report that was before committee was the staff report, so this opportunity was offered to members of council to provide their comments if they had any comments, and that certainly we would take notes with respect to those comments, and this committee would be making a recommendation to council, which is on the 21st of February. So as it stands right now, going forward from General Government section of Coordinating Committee, there is no recommendation dealing with the park management plan. That's what council will deal with on the 21st, unless a member of council pulls that report and asks that it be dealt with separately. There may or may not be some comments coming out of this meeting in terms of members of council's comments on the park management plan, and that will be dealt with later in the agenda on the 21st, because typically it's the Coordinating Committee that's dealt with, and then it's the committee, the whole report that His Worship usually provides the highlights. So conceivably there could be no comments coming from the municipality. There could be comments both from the staff and from council, or there could be a combined report that incorporates staff and council. So I just wanted to advise council in terms of procedures with respect to that. The other thing that I wanted to just update council, and I think I mentioned this at Coordinated Committee, is that I was having a meeting, as council knows, I sit on the steering committee for the park management plan, and we met on Monday, and I think I mentioned that there was going to be some discussion about the acceleration of the development of the first draft of the park management plan, and I'm pleased to advise that on Monday we were advised by Ontario Parks that the first draft will be completed by the end of this year, and the intent is to circulate it to the public for comment in early 2018, and early being January 2018. So that'll be the first draft of the park management plan, which is good news in the sense that that pulls it back. I think you may recall where I had mentioned that the park planner who was assigned to the Wasaga Beach master plan was dealing with a number of different plans across the province. She has been pulled out of those other plans, and her sole focus is on the Wasaga Beach master plan. The ministry views this as being very important and has allocated a full person to basically just work on the master plan, and she's the one who's responsible for receiving all the comments on the secondary plan. So that was additional information I just wanted to advise members of council on. Thank you.
Thank you, George, which again, council is why it is so extremely important. Even if you've made comment through on your own, I think it's very important that those comments also be fed to staff, so as that comments can be made on behalf of the town of Wasaga Beach. We are a major player in this. I think our word is very important in this, and I encourage council to ensure that they speak to staff members or the CAO either way, but get those comments in so as that we can be heard. This is extremely important to our community. Deputy Mayor Fulci.
Thank you. Just a comment. This was a fairly lengthy conversation last week. That we were not approving this plan or endorsing it. All we were doing is taking staff comments and putting them forward, trying to meet a deadline, because you either get your comments in or you don't get to comment. So I'm comfortable with staff's comments. Council was circulated this in January, so I would have hoped that any comments would have been shared already. Since last Thursday, have you had any comments from council members to add to this?
If I may, Councillor Belanger did have some comments. He wasn't able to express those comments at the general government, so I'm not aware of what his comments are.
All right, other questions or comments? Councillor Stockwell and then Councillor Ego.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Mayor, I am on the understanding that the ratepayers who watched the video of that meeting and heard, I think it was the CAO saying the matter would go to council with no recommendation and it would have to be dealt with there, intend to request a hearing during the question period at the start of the meeting on this matter. So, and I think that's good. I think we all should appreciate that. So I am one who would like to hear from the ratepayers and then deal with it at council. I mean, if I have any other comments, I'll certainly pass them on. But I just want to make it clear that I'm interested in hearing from the three associations, who I understand have talked to you, Mr. Mayor, and talked to the CAO very recently.
And we are yet to have a response from the ministry on a date to meet, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Mr. CEO.
So that's all.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ego?
Yeah, the only comment I have at this time, Mr. Mayor, is because I don't want to get cut off again, but anyways, to do with the implementation, in the licensing agreement, it says here, agreement with the Ontario Parks. And that's an agreement between the town and the municipality over Beach 1 and 2.
You mean the municipality and the parks?
Or in the parks, yes. It's an agreement, okay? I think that that should be the same situation with all of the beach. We should know what we're responsible for. They should know what they're responsible for. We should be under an agreement, same as it was back in 1978 when the agreement was drawn up. We should know what our responsibility is along with the ministry, and we should be able to sit down with them and say, okay, fine, what do you expect from us and what do we expect from you? And we should draw up some sort of an agreement so everybody's on the same page. Because right now, as you know, the balance has gone the wrong way too far. And we got to get that balance back again so it's a working agreement. I'm sure that if everybody sat down around the table and had a little discussion about this could be done. But the way they're going right now, the pendulum's gone the wrong way too far. And I'll bring this up at council next week.
Thank you, Councillor. George, did you have any other points to make on this?
Just where there are specific matters that apply to the municipality, and one comes to mind is basically some of our stormwater outlets that drain onto the beach. Staff and Public Works are working with Ontario Parks to define some protocols around those outlets and the maintenance of those outlets. It's basically town stormwater from the subdivisions that's making its way down and then drains onto the beach. So where there is interaction with the park, the town is looking to establish protocols or agreements. But essentially, the park, other than this proposed agreement with Beach Area 1 and 2, they're responsible for the area delineated by the park. There's very little interaction. We have agreements like with garbage collection. Council may recall we're helping them out with garbage collection. We work with them in terms of placement of the buoys out in the bay. So there's specific areas, but other than that, they're responsible for the park, and the town is responsible for its affairs, and that's the way it works. And you know, we could argue whether it's worked well or not, but that from the standpoint in terms of those particular areas, we are in discussion with Ontario Parks where municipal operations are impacted.
Councillor Belanger?
Well, just Ron, I don't know if, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the 1978 park plan, and certainly we understand things change, but I mean, there was terminology that was much more definitive as to how the M&R supported tourism, supported the beach as a recreational and sunbathing area, and that terminology does not exist in the same level in the new secondary plan. And so I think the responsibility being referred to is a responsibility to the town to maintain a beach that is going to support the proposed investment that we're embarking upon. And
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just think we cannot let that plan, the master plan or the secondary plan go through without addressing tourism. You know, we said that last time, and in all the presentations, the word tourism doesn't appear in their goals and objectives. And I think we have to emphasize that as much as we can, because otherwise there won't be any beach.
One last question, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead,
Just
Councillor.
one comment really was that everywhere in the plan, if you take a look at this new plan, it says 14 kilometers of shoreline. Nowhere does the ministry ever mention 14 kilometers of freshwater beach. That designation has gone right out of that plan. And I don't know if anybody noticed it or not, but that is a huge, huge knock against Wasaga Beach.
Point well taken, Councillor. Mr. CAO?
Thank you, Worship. I think Councillor Smith and to a lesser extent Councillor Belanger have talked a little bit about an issue that Council may wish to comment on and formally be on record with respect to having the term tourism mentioned in the report. That matter has been raised in the past, and tourism is in their view, this Ontario Parks, and I apologize to Ontario Parks if I get it wrong, but they're looking at recreation, providing the recreation facilities there, whether it's groomed beaches, playground structures, and that will draw the tourists. And they do a little bit of marketing in terms of trying to attract the tourists. They provide parking for visitors to our community, and that is indirectly in response to trying to attract tourists. But you're correct, it doesn't mention that in here. So council may want to consider that as one of its points that it wants to make with respect to the secondary plan, is that aspect. They kind of dance around it. If you read the report, they talk about the park as a popular destination, especially in summer. Welcomes over 1 million visitors every year. Recreation uses related to the beach include, so they dance around it, but they don't use the word tourism. So that's just something to.
That's my view.
It's a very good point the CAO makes, and it also comes back to my point to members of council. You've expressed those comments here at this table. Those comments, and it's your responsibility, each member of this council, to get those comments to staff. So as they get on paper and they get out there. Councillor Smith, everyone here, Councillor Ego, with respect to the word shoreline versus beach, is a very, very good point. We need to get it on paper, because here's what's going to happen. Once the deadline comes and is gone, and the secondary plan is completed, and we go back and say, we didn't speak about this, we didn't speak about that, we're going to say, show us where you mentioned it, where you talked about it, where the comments are. And those comments aren't going to be there unless we get them there. So again, I cannot encourage council enough to sit down with staff in the next couple of days and get any and all of those comments on paper. Deputy Mayor?
I think I was similar to that. I was going to suggest, as opposed to waiting till Tuesday night to share those comments, there can be a motion. This can already be ready to roll. Otherwise, we could have a very long council meeting.
It's a very good point. So perhaps what I'm going to do, Mr. CEO, is I'm going to ask you to have a member of staff reach out one more time to each member of council for their comment. And get that on paper so as that we can have that discussion, to the Deputy Mayor's point, that we're not, opening this up for discussion there. We'll have those comments hopefully in place, and we can then decide as a council as a whole to move those comments forward.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Last comment, Councillor Belanger?
yeah, it's just one point for consideration for our Tuesday discussion. In addition, in the secondary plan, it refers to that our comments may be taken into consideration. Okay, so that basically this could be an exercise in getting public input or the perception of public income with no desire or no commitment to take any of those comments and do anything with them. And frankly, if that were be the case, we want to use maybe a little stronger terminology into how this input is handled by the M&R.
So to my point, Councillor, that's another comment that should be made on paper. Last question, Councillor Bray.
Just my question that, yes, these are comments from council, that every member of the community is welcome to provide their comments, and we should provide that information at the council meeting so that anyone who felt council didn't hear them can go directly to the ministry with their comments.
Correct, and my understanding is the ministry has received many comments from the citizens of Wasaga Beach and abroad. Tourists who are coming here are also sending in comments, so very important. All right, we have no question on this. So the next item on the agenda is item number 7, closed session, moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Belanger, resolved that pursuant to
Item 6A.
my apologies, Councillor, I turned my page over. Thank you, George. Sorry, item number 6A, items for future meeting, new items, and the issuance of a request for proposal RFP for the publication of the town page, statutory notices, and advertisements. This is by Councillor Belanger. Did you want us to speak to this, Councillor, or?
Yes.
Just put it on the list.
Just very quickly, I would just say that I've had discussion with the CAO, and it's been some time since we've looked at this. I know that there is some consideration that our residents need to have a very consistent look.
Okay, sorry, Councillor. The CEO just advised me that we shouldn't be commenting until
okay.
future, so.
Very good.
And stop you there.
Future business.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. So that's item for future business. So a show of hands by council, whether or not we should move this forward.
Could you read it?
Read it, yeah?
Or just, is it on here? Or-
Yeah, it's
oh,
item number
okay.
6A, issuance
6A,
of
sorry.
request for proposal RFP for the publication of the town page, statutory notices and advertisements, moved by Councillor Belanger. All right. Show of hands to move forward. Unanimous, thank you. All right, thank you, George. Now moving on to item 7, closed session, moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Belanger, resolved that pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001, as amended, the next portion of the Committee of the Whole of February 14, 2017, be closed to the public to receive recommendations on the Integrity Commissioner's report and on property matters pertaining to potential disposition of land. Deputy Mayor Byfolchi.
Thank you. A comment before we move in camera. The Code of Conduct indicates under Section 31.2 that the member will be required to appear before a closed session committee of the whole meeting to be sanctioned. Personally, I'd like to see this discussion occur in a public forum, but I will follow the code. For the record, and at the advice of my solicitor, I will not be speaking on this issue while in camera, and I will choose to make my comments regarding this situation publicly in the coming week or so. Our clerk has advised that the in-camera session will be voice recorded, not video, so I would request that the chair clearly recognize each member prior to them speaking so there is no confusion as to who has said what in the in-camera session. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Madam Clerk?
Worship members of council, you've heard the question. When I call your name, please answer in favor or opposed. Councillor Belanger.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Byfolchi. In favor. And Councillor Bray. In favor. Councillor Ego.
In favor.
Councillor Smith.
In favor.
Councillor Stockwell.
Favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. We'll give the ladies and gentlemen 2 minutes to clear the room.
What, are we staying here?
Staying here. Yeah.
We have a break?
We're going to push through.
Good fella.
Cross your legs.
Because I got a 2-hour speech to make.